Are you the famous Sue? The whole crew has me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GBNews family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again.
You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good evening, good morning even. It's live, it's Washington DC, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America.
Jolene, 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 please don't take him just because you can.
What else could lead the show this evening? Yes, legendary country music star Dolly Parton has sadly died at the age of 80.
She came from nothing and was able to overcome so many trials, and I think that she's able to show that with her presence and continue to give such love to everyone in the world. And
well, as of course you'd expect, heartfelt tributes have been pouring in from around the world. We'll bring you more.
Who started the fire? That's the question, isn't it? Ukraine did not do that. Russia began this illegal invasion, and that is absolutely clear, and they could stop it at any given time. Britain will never be a fair weather friend.
Yes, tensions with Russia are rising. The front page of the Daily Mail today reports that the Prime Minister has been warned of an impending attack. Meanwhile, the director of the CIA just hours ago made a surprise visit to Moscow. Should we be worried? Plus,
Because marriage is a part of the tradition of Islam, and there is no problem.
after a GB News exclusive story found that Labour are weighing up a ban on cousin marriage in Britain, the Conservative MP Richard Holden has urged the Prime Minister not to be a coward and to take action. Well, I'm Tom Harwood and this is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel of reporter at Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, and the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy, Dr. Azim Ibrahim. And in London, it's, both Ibrahim, no relation. I'm Tom. Well, back in London is GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox and the Labour commentator Simon Nash. Thank you all for joining us this very evening. Well, moving on to our main news. The legendary country singer Dolly Parton has died at the age of 80 following a lengthy health battle. The legendary singer spent over 65 years in the music industry, performing some of the country's biggest ever hits, including 9 to 5, Jolene, I Will Always Love You, and Islands in the Stream. I can't read out any of those song titles without hearing the songs play in my head. That's how ingrained they are in our society. Well, President Trump has led tributes, describing Parton as one of the greatest country singers ever, and saying her death is a true loss for millions of people. The president added there had never been anyone like her, announcing American flags will be lowered across the United States for a week in her honour. He ended his tribute, "Rest in peace, Dolly, the world loves you." Well, let's go live now to Orlando, Florida, where Ben Leo is for us, and he's been getting reactions from Americans on the sad death of Dolly Parton. Ben, you've been speaking to Americans all afternoon, all evening. What are you hearing?
Hello, Tom. Yeah, just really sad news. I was personally myself driving down the highway here in Orlando when the news broke, not quite in Tennessee just yet, but all the radio stations, all the cable network news channels here in America, just stunned actually with the passing of Dolly Parton. She was, in the grand scheme of things, still really quite young to have died. She was only 80 years old, and that's truer in the fact that it was just last week that she was giving media interviews telling about her poor recent ill health. She wasn't specific about it, but she was well enough to be sat there in an interview speaking and giving an update on why she had to cancel a couple of recent gigs. And as you said, Tom, tributes pouring in from not just the United States, but all over the world, the likes of former President Barack Obama, even from different genres of music, not just country music or pop music, but even rap as well. Eminem has paid tribute this evening, saying, Dolly, I'm sorry we never got a chance to meet, but getting this note from Dolly really had an impact on me. She definitely didn't have to take the time to do it. Even for a kid who mostly listened to rap music, she was an icon, a superstar in every sense. Rest in peace, Dolly. And Eminem attached a picture of a letter that Dolly wrote Eminem. They never met, bearing in mind they're from two completely different genres of music. One a country star, the other a rap star. And Dolly wrote in the message how she'd always hoped to meet him, but she wanted him to know that you are so complex yet so very special to many people all around the world with your music and your creativity. Let's see if we can speak to a couple of Americans here. It's still quite early doors here in Orlando. Many people still coming back from Disneyland. Hello, sir. We're from GBNews in London. We're just seeing if you heard the news about Dolly Parton.
Who?
Dolly Parton. You heard the news?
She passed.
Yeah, she died. Any thoughts on that? Pay tribute to her?
I wasn't a big fan, but I knew her.
You were a big fan? Yeah.
Yes.
9 to 5, Jolene and so on?
I love Dolly Parton. Sail away with me to another world, and we'll rely on each other.
What did she mean to America?
She meant a lot to America. She was known for the big girls, and we love you, Dolly Parton. We'll miss you forever.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. There was Texas. I think she was from Tennessee.
Really?
Tennessee, yeah. Still country girl.
Okay.
Thank you so much, though. Appreciate it. Tom, there's lots of talk and tribute about her contribution to music, but one thing that hasn't really garnered so much attention is her generosity and her charity work. She donated tens of millions of dollars to causes all around the world, particularly focusing as well on her hometown in Tennessee. 300 million books she's dished out with her Imagination Library scheme. And Jeff Bezos in 2022 gave her, as part of his charitable fund, $100 million for her to forward on as she pleased. Let's see if we can grab a couple more people. Guys, just seeing if you heard about the news of Dolly Parton, who died earlier today.
GBNews.
Yeah. Are you English?
English, yeah.
Did you hear about Dolly's death?
We have, sadly, yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
I don't know what is the thought. I don't know.
Would she be missed?
Obviously, yeah. We've booked to go to Dollywood.
Oh, you booked to go to Dollywood?
Yeah, just today.
Are you still going?
Well, no, we've booked it today.
Yeah, but you're still intending to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen the news on GB News about Dolly Parton, and we googled it and we're going to book.
Oh, wow.
Look at them two hiding.
That would be special. They're camera shy. Well, that's really special that you saw it on GB News and now you've booked to go.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. You're a legend. 9 till 5.
Yeah, there we go, Tom. As I said, the news breaking everywhere here, Tom. Radio, television, people sometimes just learning about it as well. But for now, she'll be fondly remembered as one of the icons of not just music, but I would argue humanity as well. The term legend is often easily banded around, but in Dolly's case, it's an apt description. She's up there with the likes of Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, you know, the best of them, Tom.
An absolute legend. Ben, can I just say, both of those interviews were the most remarkable bit of television I think I've seen in a long time. They both started and I went head in hands, oh no, these people are not going to say anything that's remotely interesting.
So did I.
and then your first one, someone starts singing perfectly, might I add, and the second one, the guy, I thought it was going to be a disaster. Turns out he's booked to go to Dollywood after watching GB News. I mean, you found an absolute goldmine of people in those interviews. Thank you so much, Ben Leo. That's excellent.
Live TV, Tom.
No, just remarkable. We'll be back with you, of course, a little bit later in the programme. Well, with me now is the showbiz journalist Kinsey Schofield, because Kinsey, this is, of course, a huge story. It affects so many people from so many generations, from so much of not just America, but the world.
You're absolutely right. It's our understanding that she passed away on Tuesday morning after being admitted Friday to Nashville's Vanderbilt University Medical Center with, according to reports, autoimmune and kidney problems. I think you have to look at Dolly's final chapter through the loss of Carl Dean. That was her partner for nearly 60 years, essentially her entire adult life. She met him at a laundromat, which I think is the sweetest story. And my sources tell me his death affected her more deeply than she ever wanted the public to know. Dolly kept working. She kept making plans. And when she told her fans she was motivated and looking forward, I believe she meant it. But behind the scenes, I'm told by my sources close to Dolly, there was a noticeable decline after Carl died. She carried on because that's who Dolly was, but losing him was a challenge for her.
It is so often the case that with couples who've been together for so long, I mean, my mind immediately goes to Her Majesty the Queen, who just a couple of years after her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, passed away, so did she. I mean, so often you see this with couples who have been so close. Kinsey, of course, you're talking to us from Hollywood. What seems to be one of the most remarkable things about Dolly Parton is that she grew up in rural Tennessee, in, you know, deep red sort of country America, and was just as comfortable amongst the people she grew up with in sort of rural poverty as she was amongst the glittering lights of LA. I mean, it is a remarkable talent to be that loved across so many different worlds.
Yeah, and she was always in on the joke. I mean, this is the woman who famously said it cost a lot to look this cheap, and joked that she knew she wasn't a dumb blonde because she wasn't dumb and she wasn't a blonde. I mean, that was Dolly. She could be completely outrageous and completely self-deprecating, but underneath the wigs and the rhinestones was an incredibly intelligent woman who knew exactly what she was doing. You know, you talk about her upbringing. I think one of the things she'd love for us to bring up with her legacy is the library that the Imagination Library. Dolly's father, Robert Lee Parton, could not read or write. And she said that inspired her to launch the Imagination Library program in 1995. And what began locally eventually expanded across the United States, into Canada, into the UK, where you are, Australia and Ireland. And by the end of 2025, they had gifted more than 304 million books since its founding. In last year alone, I think that they donated more than 40 million books. So sweet to know that she honored her father in that way, and that she learned from what she saw growing up, and she wanted to change things for other families.
I mean, it is remarkable to see not just her musical success, her cultural success, her business success, her philanthropic success. This was a true giant of our age. Well, not just our age, across spanning generations. Her TV shows from the 70s to the 80s, her smash hits, the fact that she refused to give up the rights to one of her songs to Elvis Presley, of all people. I mean, this is just so totally dominant of culture in the post-war age. Kinsey Schofield, thanks so much for joining us live from Hollywood to put this in context and to talk through the life of a remarkable person. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, with me now is my panel of the reporter at Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy, Dr. Azim Ibrahim. We're going to have to sort out just how related or otherwise you are at some point.
We're not related, I
No, you're not. Okay. Okay. And in London, GBNews contributor and comedian Paul Cox and the Labour commentator Simon Nash. Okay, Paul Cox, let's start with you on this one. This is, when I heard the news, other than rushing into the studio to talk about the American reaction, I spent an inordinate amount of my afternoon listening to her back catalogue of music, some which I knew so well, some which I was hearing for the first time. It's really powerful and sometimes deeply emotional music.
Yeah, country music often is, actually. It's much overlooked in terms of popular music
in the UK. Interestingly, when I was growing up, my dad used to listen to a chap called Kenny Rogers, who actually performed Islands in the Stream with Dolly Parton. And I used to know all the as an 8-year-old boy, would know all the words to Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, not knowing who they were until you know, I started singing them at school and got bullied and pretended to like something else. But yeah, she was fabulous, and just, you know, everything that you said there, her humour obviously touched me. I really, really genuinely valued her sharp wit and her humour, because it was self-deprecating, which is rare anyway, especially rare in American society. It felt to me more so. It's more prevalent in UK society, but she was so sharp, and she didn't mind being the butt of the joke, which meant she was never the butt of the joke, because if you are laughing at yourself, no one else can laugh at you.
This is such an interesting point. I think I've heard Stephen Fry speak about this in the past, the difference between American humour and British humour. And so often it's in the American sitcoms, the lead is the guy who's, you know, the winner. He's the guy that sort of, in the end, turns up trumps, right? And in British comedy, the protagonist is very often the guy who falls down the manhole. He's the guy that ends up covered in turd or whatever it is. So it's a different approach. And I suppose, Reem Ibrahim, as someone who's moved from the United Kingdom to the United States, do you notice that difference? And do you see something slightly peculiarly British, perhaps, about Dolly Parton?
Oh, absolutely. I think that sarcasm is, in particular, such an interesting point of comparison. But also, Americans tend to be a little bit more sensitive than Brits. One example is, of course, The Office is the British version, the American version. In the British version, they have a dog, and the dog ends up dying at the end of the joke. In the American version, the dog is sick, and something happens that we don't know about. So it just sort of does one example of where Americans are just far more sensitive and they can't handle dark humour. And I do think that Dolly Parton had that self-deprecating humour, right? It was this sarcasm, it was the sort of joke. She didn't mind being the butt of the joke, but also, of course, she didn't mind making fun of herself for the enjoyment of everybody else. And I think it takes a particular type of confidence. There is just one thing I wanted to mention about Dolly Parton, which, again, I mean, I agree with everything that was said. I also think that when it comes to country music, there are so many other stars that look up to Dolly Parton. I mean, people like Ella Langley, who is now doing incredibly well. Choosing Texas was an extremely successful song, and she, you know, the people like her no doubt look up to people like Dolly Parton. There's also people like Miley Cyrus, who literally said, I would have had a mental breakdown if it wasn't for Dolly Parton in my life. So, you know, there are people that Dolly Parton have touched in real life that we actually know publicly as celebrities that have done incredibly well.
Azim, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you, as our token American on the panel, to come back and defend the great American sense of humour from the slander that we've heard from Reem this evening.
Yeah, well, I hate to break it to you, Tom.
Oh, so sorry.
I do have just purely American.
Scottish.
In my Scottish.
This is so true.
Yeah.
Oh, mea culpa.
No, but what I would like to say is that, you know, this is really a truly remarkable story of rags to riches. And not just rags in the metaphorical sense, but actual abject poverty to being one of the most successful country singers ever in the United States. You know, completely built on pure talent rather than a lot of the superficial kind of celebrities that we have today that are just online influence and so on. This was actually built on pure talent, and the fact that you know, she built this imagination library. At one point, I believe that 10% of American children under the age of 5 were actually recipients of her books, and she created an entire generation of young people that learned to read and write, all down to her. And so, such an amazing legacy of not just musical talent, but also a legacy in terms of expanding literacy and expanding philanthropy throughout the whole country and overseas.
Yeah, no, just a really, really remarkable legacy there. Simon Nash, what I found so interesting is the fact that you can read the statement from Donald Trump and you can read the statement from Bernie Sanders. I mean, you can't get much different political perspectives. And all of these people across the country, across the ideological divide, across the aisle, have the same sense of reverence.
Yeah, I mean, music does bring people together, which is fantastic, isn't it? Both sides of the political aisle. I was lucky enough to see Dolly Parton at Glastonbury, at the Brexit Glastonbury in 2016. Yeah, it was a great performance. And I was thinking, you know, the AIDS pandemic in the 80s, you know, there's a lot of stigma around people with AIDS. There were stories of soldiers at the White House sort of shaking the hands of AIDS sufferers with gloves on, you know, worried about being infected, and, you know, people saying, oh, well, it's just gay people getting this illness, it's because they've sinned, you know, they deserve to get it, this kind of awful attitude. And Dolly Parton was at the forefront of making it, well, you know, sort of acceptable and for people to have empathy towards AIDS sufferers. She actually funded a film in the 1980s to raise awareness about AIDS. And I do wonder if that kind of more liberal, kind approach to people suffering that kind of illness led to the drug developments we have now. Now, if you're suffering from AIDS or actually HIV, which of course causes AIDS, there's now a drug called PrEP. So people that have that awful illness, rather than being sentenced to death, they now have this drug and can actually live pretty normal lives. And I think people like Dolly Parton are actually, you know, part of the foundation of that by making, by removing the stigma, by funding movies and other things around it, and AIDS charities as well. Really important work.
And what I suppose cuts across the aisle about that is that was all founded in her Christian faith, in her upbringing in rural Tennessee, and the fact, I think she once had a quote where she said, well, my mother was a Democrat and my father was a Republican, which makes me a hypocrite. And just the idea that she could speak to everything, that there will be churches in America this weekend, indeed perhaps weekdays as well, that are paying tribute to Dolly Parton, but there will also be gay clubs that is doing exactly the same, and it's hard to think of another cultural figure who will be where people will be singing the praises, quite literally, actually, in both institutions of such a cultural figure. Well, thank you all to my panel. Thank you so much for your particular perspectives on this. Of course, we're going to be touching back on Dolly Parton throughout the programme this evening, and please do let me know your thoughts at home by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay. We're going to make some time to hear if you've got any stories, if you ever went to a Dolly Parton concert, if she ever touched you in a particular way. Well, gbnews.com/yoursay is the chance to tell us. Still ahead on The Late Show Live. Yes, the head of the CIA has travelled to Moscow earlier today for unannounced talks, according to US media reports. Well, we'll be discussing that story next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis. In the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is The Late Show Live. Thank you for being with us this evening. Now, I want to get to a few of your comments because those have been flooding in at gbnews.com/your say. Mike says, Dolly, geez, oh, what a figure. Absolutely lapped it up, and rightly so. And her music was fab. Angela says, so sad. Thought Dolly would have been around for years yet. Amazing, funny, talented lady, R.I.P. And CJ gets in touch to say, not sure why everyone mentions Islands in the Stream when it was one of the few covers Dolly did. It was actually written by the Bee Gees. Well, I think we can pay tribute to the covers that she did as well as the songs that she wrote, but do keep those comments coming in. Now, to our next story tonight. The CIA director, John Ratcliffe, has made an unannounced visit to Moscow for talks with Russian officials in the highest-level Trump administration trip to Russia since January, and indeed the first trip of a CIA director since before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Well, the purpose of the talks has not been disclosed, although the CIA has previously played a role in US-Russia prisoner exchanges. Well, the trip also comes amid increasing tensions between Britain and Moscow, with the front page of the Daily Mail reporting that Burnham has been warned of an impending attack. Well, let's talk about it all now with my panel of the reporter at Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and in London, GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox and Labour commentator Simon Nash. Dr. Azim, let's start with you on this one. Firstly, this was a sort of bizarre secret story that people noticed American planes on the ground, a convoy. It's only in the last few hours, really, that we've learned that the CIA director was there.
Yeah, Tom, this is actually great news. You know, this is the highest level Trump official that's visited the country. Actually, the only CIA director, the last one was in 2021, William Burns. And we have to understand that intelligence services, military services usually keep in touch even with their foes when diplomats and politicians, you know, when talks break down. So this is actually very good that the more discussion, more dialogue, intelligence-led statecraft that's actually occurring, you know, is much, much better that we have some sort of open channel, back channels with the Russians at a time when tensions are so high, rather than cutting off all sorts of contact. So this is actually a very welcome development, and I do hope that this is actually something is built upon this to actually have more substantive dialogue with the Russians.
Simon Nash, I suppose some people might worry about high-level talks between the American officials and high-up figures in the administration and the Russians, of course, while the Russians continue to bomb the Ukrainians.
Well, indeed, yeah, although perhaps they're doing some kind of secret property deal on behalf of Donald Trump. But no, I was terrified, actually, a few days ago when we found out that the Russian ambassador to the UK was being sent back to Russia. That's something that does happen before a war, but of course the embassy is open and still running, so hopefully that isn't the case. And then to come in tonight and to find out that this has happened, it is a bit terrifying. I mean, the fact that Andy Berman has been consulted about the threat of Russia and potential attacks from Russia is quite terrifying, but it's important that the CIA is perhaps putting sort of dousing the fire a little bit. The fact he's gone out there to, hopefully somewhat threaten and calm down the Russians is a really good thing. I actually met the previous, William Burns, the head of the CIA, actually met in a BBC green room a few years ago when he was sort of a retired Russian ambassador, talking about his book on one of the shows there. And yeah, he mentioned in the interview there that the issue around Ukraine and how Russia perceives that was an issue, and now it's come to fruition, and it's a real shame. I do hope there'll be peace in the area. Food prices might go up. I was reading in the Financial Times today, the ports that export grain. Russia is actually the 5th largest grain exporter in the world, and Ukraine is the 5th largest, and both countries sort of blowing each other's ports up is actually going to give us a bit of a food price increase, and war would be absolutely tragic. So I really hope that this CIA chap, who is a political appointee, does do a good job in, sort of dousing the flames. And these threats that Trump's making against any country dealing with Iran is a little bit scary. China is buying Iranian oil. Lots of other countries are buying Iranian oil. America can't sort of go to war with all these countries, and if they did, they might form a coalition of China, Russia, India and other countries against Russia, against the USA and the West, which would be absolutely terrifying. I hope this isn't leading towards World War III. And actually, economics suggests that countries do need to trade, and war will be averted, and peace will prevail. So yeah, I have my fingers crossed and prayers in action.
It used to be the case that there was something, I think, called the McDonald's dividend, or something along those lines, where up until remarkably recently, no two countries that had the franchise of McDonald's operational in their countries had ever been to war together. That broke down in the 2010s, sadly. Certainly with Russia-Ukraine, although that particular fast food franchise has now pulled out of Russia. But I think there were probably a couple of other breaches. It was at least true in the early 2010s. So perhaps we can take something from that. Reem Ibrahim, I want your take on this one too, because ultimately there are sort of a bunch of different stories here. The economic threats against Iran, the potential threats of real action against Britain that we see on the Mail front page here, but of course this strange CIA visit to Moscow that we haven't really heard details about, but lots of people are sort of intimating could be about.
Well, that's the interesting thing. I mean, the CIA have declined to comment. We don't really know what's actually going on in reality. It is scary to think about the fact that Putin, who is effectively a gangster that operates on the world stage, he has no regard for human life. And I think that we've seen that occur in Ukraine. And I think, it's quite worrying to see that happen. The United States has also asked Ukraine to stop bombing parts of Russia whilst the CIA director is there. So that's interesting too. I think that the way in which the Americans seem to desire to meddle in these kind of sort of conflicts internationally, I do think is fascinating. I hope that we can take Azim's optimism and take that exactly as what it is, because I do think it's really important to have those back channels whilst diplomatic and political channels have ceased to remain. I am, however, quite concerned by the, not only just Russian power and aggression in Ukraine, but also the potential threats to the rest of Europe. And as we know, the United Kingdom cannot defend itself. I mean, the military is so small, and even what we do spend on military expenditure, it is going on things that, it's not really necessarily going on the technologies that we need. It is really worrying, and I'm afraid that the UK, not least Europe, would not be able to defend itself should this ever come to fruition.
Concerning thoughts there. Before we go to Paul Cox, I just want to bring in Dr. Azim back in, because Reem mentioned you, Azim, about your optimism. Do you think it's wild optimism?
No, I think essentially I agree with everything that Reem has said. What I'm basically trying to say is that there's always dialogue is always better, particularly with intelligence and military services, to have some sort of channel in case that the politicians escalate things out of control, and politicians very commonly throughout history lose control over any sort of conflict, and so having these kinds of channels is always very, very important, and they can always become the foundation to actually build much more deeper dialogues that can eventually lead to diplomatic settlement. So all sorts of dialogue, I always believe, are always welcome.
Well, fingers crossed that this is an amelioration of some description. But Paul Cox, you've got that going on one hand, and then we're all being told to worry about potential bombs raining down on us from the Russians in Britain.
Well, it's not an impossibility. It's always used as a threat. What I would say is it's very interesting that right now we're getting a number of stories breaking with regards to Russia. I always think pay attention to the things that we're not aware of rather than the things that we are aware of. CIA heads going to Russia, unusual, but not massively unusual. And as Azim has said, a good thing. The idea that we're not at war with Russia is for the birds. There has been a hybrid war going on for many, many years. They've been attacking our infrastructure, and I'm sure we've been repaying the courtesy also. The Iran thing, the Russia thing, US, is all connected. Every part of it's connected. China sits in one side very, very quietly, and when I say about paying attention to things you don't see, we shouldn't mistake the fact that China aren't present in these discussions, that they're not present in what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm just intrigued by why now. I'd be interested. I don't know the answer to that, by the way, Tom. I wish I did, but I'd be interested to know why now. I don't like the fact that we openly shared blueprints with Ukraine. I don't have any issue with sharing blueprints with Ukraine, but why make a song and dance about it? Why is it on the front pages of the newspaper? Why is our Prime Minister going out there and playing Smith songs? And by the way, what's more terrifying than World War III is World War III with Andy Burnham as your Prime Minister.
Well, I suppose he's being tested. It's a very different thing running. Yeah, Simon Nash. It's a very different thing running buses in Manchester and running a nuclear-powered state.
Well, they do have similarities. But look, this issue on the missiles, I mean, there was this rumour in the USA that the anti-missile missiles that were being given to Ukraine were depleting US stockpiles, and similarly in the UK as well. So the idea we're giving them blueprints in order to make their own sort of missiles to defend from Russian missiles, and they'll be manufactured in Ukraine, and in fact we might be able to use some of those missiles ourselves. It's probably a good thing to sort of reassure the public that we're not just diminishing our stockpiles, and I guess publicly as well Russia might see, oh, actually Ukraine does have a big weapons manufacturing base, so that will be beneficial to everyone all round. And actually if people are thinking, well, if we're helping Ukraine make their own, that's not inhibiting our ability to defend ourselves, then I think that might be a good reason to have made it public.
Indeed. Well, watch this space, and thank you all for participating in. We've gone from light entertainment to the threat of world war. I mean, we can do it all on the Late Show Live. Still ahead.
Please don't take him just because you can.
Yes, indeed. We'll continue to pay tribute to the country music superstar Dolly Parton, who sadly died tonight at the age of 80. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me. What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans? Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account. You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo, every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is The Late Show Live. It's now 22, whatever hour it is, wherever you're watching this. Moving on with our main news this evening. The legendary country singer Dolly Parton has died at the age of 80, following a lengthy health battle. Well, I think it was actually quite a short health battle, but anyway, the legendary singer spent over 65 years in the music industry, performing some of the country's biggest songs, biggest ever hits, including 9 to 5, Jolene, I Will Always Love You, and of course covering Islands in the Stream. Well, President Trump has led tributes, describing Parton as one of the greatest country singers ever, and saying her death is a true loss for millions of people. Well, with me now is the showbiz journalist Ed Gleave, because Ed, this is a big, big moment, huge reaction from everyone from the President of the United States to Eminem.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like the whole world's in mourning tonight. I mean, often when a celebrity dies, especially of this magnitude, there's a sort of outpouring of love, but this feels like it's on another level. I don't think we've really seen this for quite some time. You know, just so many people, obviously lots of people that have never met her, just felt such an affinity with her. She just had such a warmth and such personality and empathy that sort of came through the screen. And obviously her music also meant an enormous amount to lots of people. So yeah, it's a very sad thing. I've seen a lot of people on TikTok who've been in tears, who obviously never met her. So she meant a lot to a lot of people.
And I suppose that's because her music was not just quite so emotional as country music can so often be, but also because it spanned so many generations. I mean, she was still performing concerts right up until remarkably recently. So many different generations over her, 65-year career will have heard her and connected to her at various moments of emotion in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've named the sort of big hits, but she wrote 3,000 songs. So, you know, everyone will have different favourites. People will discover different, you know, albums and greatest hits and stuff. I remember at uni buying a sort of £4 greatest hits in Morrison's and then sort of just discovering this treasure trove of songs. And then, you know, before long I was spending way more than I should on a concert ticket to see her, you know, and she was just fantastic. I think the thing to note about her is, obviously, she is known as a country singer, but she was so much more than that. I feel like she was a sort of mother figure for so many people. Also, she had a books charity that you know had made a massive impact on children across America. And she was an advocate for many sort of charities and things she believed in. She was very principled. I think she's a true superstar, and I'm not surprised by the level of outpouring.
Someone mentioned a little bit earlier on GB News, and it's just a thought that stuck at the back of my mind. I mean, thinking about all the flags at half-mast across the United States, just the outpouring of love, the real affection that so many people across, well, this continent have felt. I mean, is this the closest America can get to a royal death?
Yeah, possibly. I think so. I think she did have a sort of regal quality to her. I think because she was always very professional, always very empathetic, always very kind. I think she did have that sort of quality, actually. You're right, I think so. I mean, and I think anyone who met her, it will stand out. She would have had a lovely effect on so many people. I mean, I met her in 2019 when she came to London for the opening of her musical. I think you were just showing some footage just there from the red carpet that day. And, you know, everyone there was absolutely enamoured to just be in her presence.
Yeah, there are very few sort of musical figures, titans, who are given sort of the regal nicknames. I mean, you've got Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, and I suppose in many ways Dolly Parton was the queen of country.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Donald Trump, as you said, has said she's one of the best country singers. I mean, I'd argue she is the best country singer of all time. I mean, particularly outside of America, I can't think of anyone who even comes close, really. I think the thing is that it's one of those deaths that you'll always remember where you were when you found out. Like, we all remember where we were when Whitney died, or Michael Jackson, and, you know, for some older people, Elvis Presley. And I think that everyone will remember. I think this is probably the most notable sort of pop star that we've lost probably since Tina Turner. So it's a really significant moment, and I think a lot of people are very sad tonight. I think there's a little bit of sadness that we'll just not see her on the TV saying wonderful things and making, you know, self-deprecating jokes and releasing new music and really, you know, having new projects. I mean, she was still doing like how many different projects, you know, in her late 70s into her 80s. She was not slowing down, and I think that, you know, it's sad that she's gone, but what a life to have lived. You know, you really props to her for what she achieved. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah, so much packed in to that life. Well, Ed Gleave, thanks so much for joining us and talking through, well, a remarkable transatlantic story, which is what this programme is all about. Thanks indeed for joining us. Let's get a quick reaction now with my panel, the reporter at Reason Magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and in London, Paul Cox and Simon Nash. Simon, quick word from you. This is a story that transcends, I suppose, the English-speaking world.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we all love music around the world, people both sides of the aisle. And Dolly Parton was someone whose money didn't go to her head. You know, unfortunately, you know, Michael Jackson as a child star, things didn't go quite right near the end, and throughout much of his life, all that fame and money caused a lot of problems for him, unfortunately. We see this with lots of other pop stars. I actually would say that, you know, Dolly Parton's Christian faith really grounded her. So when your goal is to sort of help others, to love your neighbour, that probably really helps with having £500 million in your bank account. Otherwise, you end up just chasing hedonism, and you end up somewhere between Epstein's Island and a heroin addiction. Lots of pop stars, rock stars go into drugs because they just have unlimited money, and they're taught that unlimited pleasure is the goal. Whereas actually with you know, a bit of Christianity, you're told that there are greater things in life, and that seems to have really grounded her, as well as her long-term relationship as well.
That's a really point there, Simon. Yeah, thank you indeed. Just a quick word now from Dr. Azim Ibrahim on that point, that actually so few celebrities that reach that level of stardom can be seen to be grounded in any sort of sense.
Yeah, I think part of the reason is, Tom, is that a lot of the celebrities of today, they're actually chasing fame and fortune without actually, in essential, not a lot of talent. They're actually not talented celebrities. I think Dolly Parton was probably one of the last of the great generation of celebrities that was built on raw talent. You know, Michael Jackson, Elvis, Sinatra. They were genre-defining singers, and I think she was one of the last remaining of those. And I think the point about being based on Christian values, I think that's absolutely critical. I think that did essentially motivate her celebrity and fame and fortune, then channel it to her foundation, which has brought so much benefit to so many people in the United States and elsewhere. And this is an example that I think everybody else should be looking at.
Yeah, well, thank you both. I'm sorry we didn't quite get to you, Paul and Reem. We'll start with you in the next segment. Well, still ahead on The Late Show Live, we'll be covering tomorrow's front pages, including The Telegraph. Is Birmingham ready for their council's crusade against cars? Well, this is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Yes, let's delve into some of the main stories on the front of tomorrow's papers. And one of the few stories that is not leading with Dolly Parton, of course she's there on the page, but the big story there with the lots of words behind, around it is the Telegraph saying Birmingham set to be the first 20-mile-an-hour city. Yes, if plans updated this week, their council, run by the Lib Dems, the Green Party and a host of independents, have announced that all routes except A roads are set to become 20-mile-an-hour zones. They say it wants to ensure that cars no longer dominate street life. But what does my panel think? Well, let's speak to the reporter at Reason Magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer for the New Lines Institute, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and the GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox, and the Labour commentator Simon Nash. Paul, what do you make of this story?
Well, what no one here will know is that I'm actually an expert on this to some degree. I worked for Transport for London for 12 years. I worked on the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits across London. This was whilst I was a comedian and before I got into media. You know, I've repented and I've been forgiven for working. In fact, I've said this before to Simon. I work for TfL, I work for Serco, and I've worked for GB News, and this is the least controversial organisation I have ever worked for. But what I can tell you is optically and outwardly, the 20-mile-an-hour limits is about reducing KSIs, killed or seriously injured numbers, and it does to some degree. Anecdotally, and some statistics show a 30% reduction across the decades. However, make no mistake, I can tell you this categorically, that within the powers at TfL, the idea of getting rid of the car is incredibly high on their priority, and 20 mile an hour is very important in doing that. The trouble is, even in London, where the transport network is so incredibly good by comparison to elsewhere, people still rely on traffic. All freight relies on moving around in lorries and cars and vans. You are never going to get rid of it. So what they do is they try and either slow it right down or push it out onto the outer A roads, but it never seems to really work, and actually doesn't bring down the pollution either, because pollution is very much based on the direction of the wind, and 20 mile an hour is very much based on whether people will actually stick to it. And I can tell you, as somebody who drives through London in the middle of the night regularly, people do not stick to it.
Yeah, I think most people take it as sort of a 25 sort of guidance, but even so, I suppose some people might argue that then brings down the speed anyway. It's safer. But I suppose, Reem Ibrahim, a 5 mile an hour limit would be even safer. We'd have many fewer road deaths if we made our motorways sort of snail ways. This is a sort of balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally detest this, and I think part of the problem is that the British government want to effectively control what people do, and indeed them having that independence that they get from having a vehicle. And I do think this is something that, comparing the US to the UK, Americans understand that your vehicle, your car, gives you this independence. Everywhere in America, people have cars, and I think in the UK that loss of independence is really, really important to fight against.
It's actually remarkable to see how quick using a car is in a city like Washington, DC. You can get from one end to the other remarkably quickly because they actually care about their road infrastructure. Well, more coming up in the next hour, including this.
Making love with each other, islands in the street, that is what we are.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome back to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's warm and humid for many of us today, but low pressure is moving in, and that will give heavy downpours, even some very lively thunderstorms. In fact, we're starting the day with heavy showers moving through parts of central and eastern England. This line of showery rain extending through northwest England into Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, and it's progressing north. Meanwhile, as temperatures rise through the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south, other thunderstorms will develop into the afternoon, interspersed by some sunshine, and it will feel warm in the sunshine, temperatures up to the mid or even high 20s, staying largely dry but fresher to the north and northeast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine for Shetland and Orkney, barely a drop of rain here. And we keep a fine end to the day for many parts of Scotland, generally northeastwards of Glasgow. But we do have this area of potentially thundery rain moving into southern and central Scotland as the day progresses. Showers easing off for a time across Northern Ireland, but this is the area where there is a thunderstorm warning. Parts of Wales into northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia, because of the risk of large hail, frequent lightning, torrential rain. We're talking about 50 millimetres in places in just a few hours. That could cause some serious impacts, despite the fact that we've been so lacking in rainfall recently. More heavy downpours move into the south overnight, and to start things off on Thursday, a warm and muggy start to the day here. And it's going to be a cloudy start for many parts of the UK on Thursday itself. We follow the track of this line of potentially thundery rain as it moves through central parts of the UK, albeit slowly, and some places again could see more than 50 millimetres through the day accumulating, and that amount of rain could cause flash flooding. Another thunderstorm warning in force. Quieter for Scotland, just a few showers, drying up in the far south.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo, every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, good morning, live from Washington DC. This is GB News with the stories shaping both Britain and America.
For me, Applejack, Applejack, play a song for me, and I'll sing. Play a song for me, Applejack, Applejack, play a song, let your band go ring.
Yes, the big-haired banjo-playing icon of country music, Dolly Parton, has died at the age of 80.
She came from nothing and was able to overcome so many trials, and I think that she was able to show that with her presence and continued to give such love to everyone in the world. And
you'd expect heartfelt tributes have been pouring in from around the world. We'll bring you more tonight. Also,
because marriage is a part of the tradition of Islam, and there is no problem.
After a GB News exclusive found that Labour are weighing up a ban on current cousin marriage, the Conservative MP Richard Holden has urged the Prime Minister to not be a coward and to take action.
And let there be no mistakes about this. Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him.
If you don't know who that man is, look him up. That's Lee Kuan Yew, the sort of founder, I suppose, of modern Singapore, where a British man faces up to 7 years in prison after being arrested at the airport for stealing a jacket 2 years earlier. They do not forgive and they do not forget. Should we follow suit? More on that later. Well, I'm Tom Harwood and this is The Late Show Live. Yes, welcome to the Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel of the reporter at Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, and the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy, Dr. Azim Ibrahim. Over in London, GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox, and the Labour commentator Simon Nash. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Now, before we get on to our news of Dolly Parton and some of that more reaction from around the world, let's get to what some of you have been saying, both on Dolly and on much else besides. Jacques has been writing, I was born in early 60s London. My first love was country music from an early age when most in England did not have a clue what it was. I still have my original vinyl of Dolly Parton. In concert she excelled, her love of life and our Lord was compelling. Gordon has written in to say, people like Dolly Parton never truly die. They just leave the building. At some point it happens to everyone. Some leave a legacy, so they never die. Linda says, such a sad loss at the passing of Dolly Parton. I read her book years ago. My all-time favourite is of Dolly and Kenny singing Islands in the Stream. On other news, Anne wrote in to say, Tom, Wales has been 20 miles an hour for a couple of years now, so Birmingham isn't the first city to go 20 miles an hour. And you are absolutely spot on, Anne. I wonder if Birmingham's the first city in England to be 20 miles an hour. Do I get a get-out clause there, perhaps? Roy writes in to say, I fear for our children with threats from within and threats from Russian, Chinese, Iran and others. We need our government to take action. Love Dolly, by the way. Well, do keep those comments coming in. And yes, that main news this evening, the legendary country singer Dolly Parton has died at the age of 80 following a lengthy health battle. The legendary singer spent over 65 years in the music industry, performing some of the country's biggest ever hits, including 9 to 5, Jolene, I Will Always Love You, and covering Islands in the Stream. Well, with me now is the radio DJ Alex Dyke. Alex, thanks indeed for joining me. This is an enormous story. It's clear to see why this is on the front page of just about every paper.
Yes, it's up there with John Lennon in 1980 and Michael Jackson in 2009, Whitney Houston, of course, in 2012, George Michael in 2016, and of course, Elvis Presley in August 1977. Dolly is one of the greats, and everything about Dolly was big. Her hair was big, her personality was big, and her heart was big. And it's a very, very sad day. Also, of course, a lot of us didn't know that Dolly had been ill. She was posting videos on social media up to very recently, looking $1 million. For us in the UK, though, she didn't get the kind of start that she got in America. And I think that's maybe not important to remember, but interesting to remember. Her first #1 in America was Joshua in 1971, although she made her first album in 67. In Britain, Joshua flopped. And so did Jolene in 1974. Then at the beginning of the long, hot summer of 1976, it was re-released by RCA. Here it is. Here's the re-release version. It was a maxi single. On the other side, you've got two of her biggies, Coat of Many Colours and Love is Like a Butterfly. And then from this single here, it went a bit crazy for her with airplay. Then her big hit in Britain comes in 1980, and that's 9 to 5.
And 9 to 5, of course, just that iconic song that spawned a movie and a musical that was successful, of course, playing in London, where I actually went to see it one year, and Dolly Parton, well, at least a video recording of her, opened every performance. It does seem like she is a cultural figure that does span the world. But let's talk a little bit about one of those songs that you mentioned just then. It's one that I didn't know well before today. Of course, I knew all the big classics, the uplifting songs, I suppose. But Coat of Many Colours was such a personal song to her, telling the story of her childhood in poverty, how other children made fun of her for a ragtag coat created by her mother, but also drawing in a biblical story there too. I mean, it speaks to so much of who Dolly Parton was.
Yes, Dolly could promote Christian values weaved into music. She was very good at that. She was a great storyteller. That song is a beautiful song, and I urge people to listen to it if they don't know it. But also a brilliant, brilliant business person. In 1974, she writes, "I Will Always Love You." Now, most people in Britain and in Europe know that because it was a smash hit in the Bodyguard movie for Whitney Houston in the early 90s. But of course, in other parts of the world, particularly in the United States, it was known as a Dolly Parton song. Now, in 1974, Elvis Presley, and you never got bigger in the world than Elvis Presley, he wants to record that song. His manager, Tom Parker, approaches Dolly and says Elvis would like to record the song, but because he's Elvis, he always gets 50% of the writing credits or the royalties on the song. Dolly, who could really have done with the money in 1974, and she's going to get millions for agreeing to it, says, "No, it's my song. Elvis isn't having it." Now that, particularly when you record for the same record label as Elvis Presley, RCA Victor, that took courage. And Dolly was very, very brave in business and in life.
Brave and clever. Because, I mean, who could have the foresight to think that actually holding on to that song, perhaps sensing that it was a hit? I mean, astonishing. But also we saw so much of her, frankly, her intellect in how quickly she wrote some of these songs. Famously, "I Will Always Love You" and "Jolene," written on the same day in 1972.
Yeah, I know. The lady was very, very talented, very, very sharp. But because, of course, in those days, she was a blonde, she was seen to be a bit of a bimbo. And she would play that image up by going out on stage at the beginning of most of her live concerts saying, "It takes a lot of money to look this cheap." And she sent herself up beautifully. That's why she was such a fit with Johnny Carson on his Late Show, or with the Muppets in 1987, or with Terry Wogan back here on the BBC in the 1980s. And of course, Dolly, the great thing about Dolly was she was everywhere, but she was never in your face. She didn't get on your nerves. She had a beautiful, beautiful personality. And even if she couldn't sing a note, I still think she would have been a world superstar, just because she was an amazing, very, very kind person. And people mattered to Dolly, and that's what made her very, very special.
Yeah, holds such a special place in so many people's hearts. Well, Alex Dyke, thanks so much for talking through a remarkable figure who we've lost. I think it's fair to say we've lost too young today, actually. Well, radio DJ Alex Dyke, thanks indeed for joining us. With me now is my panel of reporter at Reason Magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and in London, GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox, and Labour commentator Simon Nash. Reem, let's talk a little bit about her business acumen. Because it wasn't just music, it was a whole host of enterprises that Dolly Parton built up over her life.
Well, of course, Dolly Parton as a brand was a business in itself, but of course, when she was able to make so much money through her music and being the legendary star that she was, she also was able to invest. She had beauty companies or investments in various different industries, and of course, the philanthropic work, which we discussed earlier in the programme, was absolutely fantastic. The fact that so many children across America were able to access reading materials, were able to access books, were able to become further educated because of her philanthropic work. I will say, I think that philanthropy in general, perhaps is because America is so much richer than Britain, but philanthropy is so much more of a thing in America than it is in the UK. Yeah. And actually the celebration of wealth and the idea that if you are wealthy, you can give part of that wealth to industries, or of course invest in particular things that you are interested in. I mean, Dolly Parton is one example of many celebrities that have done that, and I think she was brilliant at it. I mean, she knew exactly what the brilliant makeup trends were, and so she was able to sort of promote those particular products in that way, and I think it's really quite special.
Dr. Azim, I wanted to ask something slightly different about how a figure like Dolly Parton might not be able to exist in the future. And there's a particular sort of argument I want to follow on this one, which is Dolly Parton was able to sort of sit above politics in so many ways. She never really backed a political party. She had her overwhelming Christian philosophy of being very, very kind to everyone. But I don't know what she thought about, Gaza. I don't know what she thought about so many hot-button political issues. She seemed to stay clear of that. And I just wonder, given how many celebrities these days are asked for their two-bit opinion on geopolitics and have a microphone shoved in their face on the red carpet, or their fan base is sort of calling them out and cancelling them if they don't say what the fan base want them to say, Dolly Parton comes from a time where that didn't happen. I mean, will we ever be able to see someone who is so universally loved across the aisle anymore, given how demanding certain sections of the listening public are when it comes to making celebrities be political?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons for that, Tom, is that the Dolly Parton brand and status was established well before social media even existed, and so she had built a name for herself, built a foundation, and essentially built her reputation in that field. Now it's getting more and more difficult. Any new celebrities that emerge, particularly on social media, they're immediately put in a box, whether they like it or not. They're immediately labelled, they're put in a box, and they're essentially stuck with that label, and they have to constantly fight back to kind of try to push against that. So it's getting more and more difficult in terms of trying to redefining yourself. The Dolly Parton came from a generation when that simply did not exist. You basically built your own brand on raw talent, and now we have so many superficial celebrities that are just fly by night online, and they disappear the next day. And it's become much easier to essentially assassinate characters as well online and put an end to their career much more quickly. Somebody like Dolly Parton would have immunised herself against that simply because of the huge figure that she was.
Yeah, and I think that it's really interesting looking at the way in which politics has made us so much more polarised, but also the way it's permeated not just our conversations about politics and policy specifically, but everything else in life. I mean, our books are now political, our movies are always political, everything has to come from something, and there has to be a sort of intention behind it. And I love this Oscar Wilde quote, it's art for art's sake. It's art because it's beautiful and not because it's supposed to mean something in that way. And it can still mean something, but not have some sort of socio-economic or political sort of answer to something. And I think it's really beautiful to see old-time artists that really had that. I'll also say there are plenty of examples of what Azim just said, this idea that celebrities are always put into a box. The example that comes to mind is somebody like Sydney Sweeney, who just did an advert about Levi jeans and then was apparently sort of touted by the right, and the left called her racist, the right said, well, she's brilliant, she's a white supremacist. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
All for saying she's got great jeans.
She's got great jeans. It's absolutely ridiculous. But also, I think just goes to show how crazy we've all become when it comes to politics. We all need to calm down a little bit and realise that actually touching grass every now and then is a good idea.
Well, what a moment to bring in Paul Cox, because as a comedian, Paul, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm sure you've noticed this, I'm sure you'll know far better than I sat down and watched a BBC comedy programme recently. I think it was called Live at the Apollo. And I couldn't work out if I was actually watching a comedy programme or some sort of political lecture. There was a comedian on stage who barely told a single joke and was just telling the audience what to think. And do you know what? Do you know how I could tell how awful this was? There were more people nodding and applauding than actually laughing. And it's like, OK, fine, if I wanted to attend a sociological lecture, I've gone back to university.
Well, that's such a very intelligent point, Tom. Look, I should just say up top, I am a massive Sweeney fan. She does have great genes, and I just want that on record. What I would say about Live at the Apollo, Tom, is it's now no longer. It was cancelled just a couple of weeks ago because of exactly what you said. There was a time, probably about 10 years ago, for a period of about 10 to 15 years, where it was the very epitome of success in comedy. If you achieved a position on Live at the Apollo, you were the very best that Britain had to offer, or sometimes that the world had to offer. That changed with identitarianism. So it was no longer a meritocracy around comedy, it was who could achieve the most tick boxes. And as cynical as that sounds, it's been borne out by the fact it's now over, because people did not watch it. I run comedy clubs, and if I can tell you this for sure, by the end of Live at the Apollo, the people that appeared on there would not headline most comedy clubs because most people don't want to pay to see it. Even if you put on your posters, on your branding, on your promotion that we've got a Live at the Apollo act, it didn't turn ticket sales because people never saw that as a measure of success anymore. And it's so sad. One of the reasons Dolly Parton and all the other greats we've talked about stood the test of time is because they stood alone as genuine greats. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think because we politicised everything, we've made a quality of outcome, and because of a quality outcome means everyone must get a medal, then everyone does get a medal, so everyone can be seen as a pop star or a comedian or a commentator, and as such, everyone gets a fair slice of the cake, and it's just not representative of talent.
Although, of course, some of us can be all three put together, right? A commentator, a star of stage and screen, anyway. Simon Nash, have we all been all consumed by this sort of everythingism? That we have to make everything political, that everyone has to sort of toe the line, that we've sort of squashed out the glorious variety that used to be perhaps more at the fore?
Well, you know, I think as a pop star, it's okay to say, well, I don't have any opinion on that. You know, for example, Meghan, Harry and the Queen, I've never met any of them, and I just reserve judgment on that whole situation, for example, personally. And I think anyone in music, if you're not
when did
particularly...
you get into pop music, Simon?
Oh, say that again, sorry?
Well, you said you were a pop star.
When did you become a pop star?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that. I mean, as a political commentator, I'm not in... I didn't mean to say that I'm a pop star. I can play piano, but I'm not a pop star. Sorry, a problem with my speaking there. I think as a political commentator, for example, the Meghan and Harry, I just think, well, you know, good luck to them all. For example, if you are a pop star, I think it is okay in this day and age to say, well, actually, I don't have a political view on those things because I'm not qualified to say so. But that's not what pop stars are encouraged to do in the age of social media.
So I can tell you this, Simon, from the inside of the arts industry, and I was very much on the periphery. I kept myself to myself because I had views that I knew weren't conducive, so I just kept stum. But if you share those views performatively, whether you believe them or not, you will get on because you will be accepted quicker. It's Pavlovian. Do you know, what do you think on Gaza? Get that right, move to the next level. What do you think on, the trans debate? Get that right, move on to the next level. It's got nothing to do with anything else. It's about making sure you've got the right opinions.
Well, until you get them wrong, of course, and then all society changes. You know, like with all of this DEI stuff, and then Trump got rid of that, and then companies just changed overnight, and people changed their opinions overnight as well, or they got stuck. So, I would say as well, there's less money in the music industry now, so the greats of sort of Michael Jackson and Dolly Parton might not come about. I think most young people when I was at school 10-20 years ago they wanted to be a pop star or a rock star, and now they want to be social media influencers or YouTubers. So.
I don't know what's more believable, that you're a pop star or that you went to school 10 years ago.
Yeah, more like 20 years ago now. I lose track of time.
No, do you know what? You're actually also... I'm so embarrassed to admit this, actually. You say that time sort of starts moving quickly as you get older. In the UK, it's the 26th of August now.
It's your birthday!
Yes, Tom. I wasn't sure whether to mention it or not.
So I mean, it's also Macaulay Culkin's birthday and Michael Gove's birthday and Mother Teresa's birthday.
Oh wow!
And I think the eruption of Krakatoa as well. I can go on, but ultimately I'm not going to say anything about it until it gets to where I am. It's still the 25th of August. So
you're not special yet, Tom.
That's it. I'm not special yet, but Simon, I absolutely do understand what you say about the passage of time, and I could blink and I could swear I was still 20. But anyway, thanks everyone for joining us on that one. Do let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved as ever. Up next on The Late Show Live.
Because marriage is a part of the tradition of Islam, and there is no problem.
Yes, a GB News exclusive report has found that the Labour Party is weighing up a ban on cousin marriage. Well, the Tory MP Richard Holden has urged the Prime Minister not to be a coward and to take action. My panel will debate whether he should next. Well, this is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Yes, welcome back to The Late Show Live. Well, the Shadow Transport Secretary, Richard Holden, has accused the government of being cowards over its refusal to, so far at least, to back a ban on first cousin marriage. Well, Mr Holden told GB News ministers were unwilling to stand up to what he called vested interests. He urged the Prime Minister Andy Burnham to back legislation which would outlaw the practice. It comes after a GB News exclusive report revealed that Labour has opened the door to supporting a ban, with the Ministry of Justice saying it is considering whether legislation is the best way to tackle this particular issue. Well, the debate was reignited after a Sudanese migrant was allowed to remain in Britain after an upper tribunal ruled her marriage to her first cousin was legitimate. It turns out if you are a illegal immigrant in Britain, you can simply marry your cousin and Bob's your uncle, or perhaps your father-in-law. And you get to stay in the country. Anyway, let's now speak to the man who got the scoop. Yes, it's GB News assistant news editor Jack Walters. Jack, this is a pretty big U-turn from this government, if indeed they follow through.
Yeah, well, first of all, happy birthday, Tom. I just wanted to say that you're right with what you said about the Ministry of Justice spokesman. It's not necessarily that they will push ahead with the ban, but we're definitely seeing a change in words from the government. With Starmer, it was always accused, especially by Richard Holden, of kicking the can down the road and not giving him enough time in Parliament to really debate his private member's bill. But from what my understanding is, they do believe there are serious concerns, and they are just weighing up whether this legislation is the best solution for it. But I also understand that they will look specifically at Dr. Luke Evans' legislation in general, and that therefore could be the way forward in this debate, which keeps reigniting, as you say.
And Dr. Luke Evans is the backbench Tory MP who brought forward a private member's bill. Have I got that right?
Yeah, so he brought that forward on June the 17th. So as we said, Richard Holden brought his forward last year, and then that fell when the King's speech came, and then the legislative agenda fell. So Luke Evans brought his forward on the June 17th, and that won't return to the House of Commons again for its second reading until at least January next year. So there's still a lot of time for this debate to roar on in the corridors of Westminster.
Well, it's an absolutely fascinating story. It is one that does baffle a lot of people. But frankly, Jack, as you say, this was defeated under the Starmer government.
Yeah, so it was more they just didn't want to afford it time. And I think there's a real reason for that. You've seen sort of Labour MPs haven't outwardly often spoken about it, but a couple have. So Barry Gardiner came on GB News and said that he wouldn't vote to ban it. But then you have people like Neil Coyle who said he would. So there is some real sort of, granted it's in the peripheries of the party, but there's some real split views on the matter.
No, that's absolutely fascinating. Well, Jack Walters, congratulations on the scoop. I'm sure we will see more on this story as Parliament returns in September. But thanks very much indeed for joining us quite so late in the United Kingdom, or perhaps so early. Thanks indeed. Well, let's turn now to my panel. The reporter at Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer for the New Lines Institute, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and in London, GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox, and the Labour commentator Simon Nash. Now, Reem, what do you make of the idea that cousin marriage should be banned?
Well, look, I don't like cousin marriage. I think it's really grim. It gives me the hippie-jibbies to even think about it. It's gross. Don't marry your cousins. There are obviously lots and lots of genetic issues that can occur as a result of it when your children are the children of first cousins. However, I don't think that this is any of the government's business, and I think part of the problem is we have conversations about, you know, what the role of the state actually is. I think lots of things are really terrible, and I do not want people to do them, but I also do not think it's the role of the government to go around policing who people are sleeping with, effectively. We're talking about this as though, you know, if you are to be married to somebody else as an adult, it is your right to do so. And look, there are certain communities that are more likely to do it. We've got lots of Asian communities that do it. The guy that was in the sting that was saying, you know, it's part of Islamic culture, it's just completely untrue. There are lots of Islamic countries that do not do cousin marriage anymore because they are aware of the genetic abnormalities. The other aspect of this is that if it is the case you want to ban cousin marriage because of the genetic abnormalities that may occur, then we may also ban women over the age of 40 from having children, because the genetic abnormalities, the risks that occur as a result, are basically the same, and they're different. The chromosomal abnormalities are different, but the risk is basically the same. And so if you want to ban cousin marriage to protect the potential children, then you must also ban women over the age of 40 from having children, which means that my sister wouldn't have been born. And I do think that this entire conversation about the role of the state needs to happen, because lots of people don't like something and they think that the solution to that is a new law. I don't think so. I think stop telling people, or stop allowing people, stop having those conversations and saying, hey, this is actually pretty gross, don't marry your cousin.
Well, this is philosophically difficult, isn't it? Because it's unlike something that perhaps the harm principle, to get philosophical about it, might then prevent you from doing. This isn't just about you. Or indeed just about two consenting adults. This is also, in most cases, also about a new life that is created. And that's where there is a lot of difference of opinion in terms of whether or not that breaches those individual rights that you so fiercely defend.
But Tom, there are lots of different things that people do that harm their children, or indeed harm their unborn children. For example, there are many women that drink alcohol whilst they are pregnant. Are we going to make it illegal for women to drink alcohol whilst they're pregnant? No. Of course, there are some people that do so and they harm their fetus, and I think that that's an awful thing to do. We can have conversations about how we can prevent the harms without requiring politicians to pass a new law and have police go around to homes.
Isn't this just an element of how easy it is to enforce? It would be impossible to enforce a law banning pregnant women from drinking. Absolutely impossible. You need inspectors in every house, in every room. But when it comes to marriage, that is a legally recognised contract that the state can literally grant or refuse to grant. That is perhaps the easiest thing on the face of the planet for the state to enforce.
Well, you can't stop those people from having relationships, and of course when it comes to particular Islamic communities, for example, many of them have an Islamic marriage that is not recognised by the British state, and so they would be, in their own eyes or in the eyes of their God, they would be married. So you can't
get the tax benefits though.
No, they wouldn't, but the tax benefits in the UK are very minimal compared to America. I don't think people are getting married for the tax benefits in the UK, Tom. Part of the problem, I think, is this entire conversation has presided over whether or not we think something is right or wrong. I think cousin marriage is wrong, but that doesn't mean the government should be policing who people are sleeping with.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Azim Ibrahim on this point, because on the medical side of things, of course, children of first cousins, you only have to look at the Habsburgs to see how that goes.
Yeah, I think this has been long overdue, Tom, to be honest, not only because it's been used to game the immigration system, which in its entirety is completely dysfunctional, so there's absolutely no surprises there at all, but the reality is, cousin marriages only account for 0.1% of marriages in the UK. In some places like Bradford, where there's a large Pakistani Mirpuri population, is up to 50%, 50 to 70%, but that's also indicative of the birth defects that are actually happening in many of those countries. Up to 30% of the birth defects that are happening in Bradford is because of these cousin marriages. And why would you impose on a child a lifelong medical condition that's going to cost not just the taxpayer millions of pounds in terms of treatment, but give the child a miserable life throughout their life, just medical treatment after medical treatment. Other countries have looked at this and have banned it, Norway, Sweden, China, etc. I think the UK needs to follow suit and also ban this anomaly.
Remember, the Queen was married to her cousin, second cousin, but still a cousin.
Well, that wouldn't be banned then.
No, it wouldn't be. Would you allow legally allow second cousin marriage, but first cousin is where we draw the line?
I think the medical evidence clearly shows that it's first cousin marriages that are the most dangerous, are the most likely to increase the risk of birth defects by up to 6%. And at a time when we have such precise medical science, we should be doing absolutely everything possible to mitigate and lower any.
Should we also have forced abortions for every woman pregnant over the age of 40?
Yeah, well, I don't believe in abortion in general, but the fact is that there's so many methods to actually reduce even people women above the age of 40 to reduce.
Ban women over the age of 40 from having sex. If you're over the age of 40, you cannot have sex.
You can freeze.
Do not ban that. Please do not ban that at all.
banning. The fact is, cousin marriages, by a simple stroke of the pen, can actually improve the lives of so many children that are being born in the UK.
The point I'm making is that there is absolutely no evidence that a law in the United Kingdom banning cousin marriage is going to stop cousins from sleeping with one another and ultimately producing offspring. This is ridiculous. I do not want the police investigating what people are doing with their own lives, and I think that fundamentally cousin marriage is an awful thing to do. Don't do it. It's also just really icky and gross, like ill, but also quite frankly, it is not the government's role to investigate what people are doing with their own lives and who they choose to sleep with.
Yeah. So certainly the police cannot police what people who anybody is sleeping with, but the reality is almost all of the cousin marriages happening in the UK are happening with their spouse in Pakistan as a mechanism by which to bring over members of their family, particularly in Bradford. So that once you outlaw that, that will essentially disappear.
So if the issue is the immigration system, let's reform the immigration system. Let's make it so that this illegal immigrant that comes over cannot just get married to their cousin and then become legally resident in the United Kingdom.
But they're not,
the immigration system
is totally... They're actually going to Pakistan, getting married to their cousins and then bring them over. If that's made illegal in the first place, not only are you cutting off that part of that immigration system, but you're also saving a child from having a lifelong issue of medical
not
issues.
True. That's not true though, is it? Because I'm looking at the figures, you know, the chance of a birth defect if you marry your cousin goes up from 3% with a normal relationship to 6%. So it's not like a huge increase. I've got a couple of friends that had Crohn's disease. So they went through
Why would you say that's not a huge increase?
Well, I mean, it's not going to make every child...
6 out of every 100?
Well, I mean, that's not every... if you marry your cousin, the likelihood is your child will be absolutely fine. I think the issue is when generation after generation is marrying their cousin. That's when it's an issue. I'm not advocating for it, but if you start to make things illegal, it leads to problems. Again, women over, I think, 45, you've got a 1 in 26 chance of a genetic defect, unfortunately. So, and again, with Crohn's disease, you have a 1 in 1...
cousins.
You have a 1 in 2 chance. If you have Crohn's disease, should you not breed? No, you can have a genetic testing of your sperm and then ensure that your child is safe. Perhaps we need a leaflet, like the recent immigration leaflet, saying, look, if you marry your cousin, it might come out like that, just to educate recent migrants about this. And also this issue about people marrying their cousins in order to get migration. Well, they are staying married, so if they didn't do that, they would be marrying someone else in the same country and bringing them over. And I think, look, you mentioned smoking and pregnancy. Actually, I worked in the shop as a student a couple of years ago, and I did object to selling cigarettes and alcohol to a woman that was pregnant. You could enforce that. And actually, I don't think a woman should be drinking alcohol at dangerous levels or smoking whilst pregnant. I consider that child abuse. Actually, you could pass a law around that.
That was you, as a human being, making a choice, because human beings can make choices without the government making it for them.
And yet, I think there's a really interesting point here, which is societal expectation. Now, I think the societal expectation on child marriage has shifted considerably in Britain post the Enlightenment. I mean, post sort of the modernisation of our society. It used to be the case, and you can find many members of the royal family who married their cousins hundreds of years ago. I like to think we've sort of advanced as a society since the Tudor times. And yet that sort of societal expectation doesn't seem like it cuts across every single community. Dr. Azim, you mentioned specifically the Mirpuri community in Bradford, and this is a disproportionately poor part of Pakistan, I'm given to understand, a very rural part of Pakistan. It seems to have, dare I say it, at almost 2 in the morning, fairly backwards social standards.
No, absolutely. 18% of the births in Bradford are from cousin marriages, but they account for 30% of the child defects. And you're absolutely right, you know, this is exacerbated generation after generation, which is more the reason why we need to cut it off now, because it's just going to get worse and worse, and the risk factors are only going to increase even further. So now is the time that this law is on the table. We need to take hold of it and essentially cut it off, just like other countries have done, for the benefit of everybody.
Paul Cox, I'm so sorry I haven't come to you directly yet in this conversation. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, what a conversation. Look, I'm from a council estate in Portsmouth, and even I have never thought about sleeping with my cousin. I All of my cousins were female, all of them beautiful as well. I'm sure none of them are watching right now. Hopefully they're sleeping. But at no point, and this for me is a very...
With who?
I understand. I understand Reem's point because she's a libertarian, but one of the reasons I'm not a full libertarian is because I think there needs to be intervention at some point. Because although I don't believe in a big state, I believe in some state, and you know, just sort of pointing out that this could be harmful to you as a matter of course and advice, I think could prove very useful. And there is a number of reasons here. Dr. Azim picked... I'm just going to call him Dr. Azim like you do as well. Normally I say Azim, but tonight I'm going to say Dr. Azim.
If someone's worked to get doctor in front of their name, I think
exactly, yeah. and it suits him as well.
If I said university after 3 years.
If I said I was a doctor, it just wouldn't sound right, would it? You just wouldn't believe it anyway. But you do believe it with Azim. As Azim rightly pointed out, you know, this is not just about the biological problems. This is about the societal problems. This is about the culture of the UK. It's about what we believe in and what we want to protect. And it's very...
But lots of the Irish traveller community also marry their cousins.
There's absolutely no way I'm picking on that community. That was just Reem Ibrahim. I'm going nowhere near that.
Well, I think some communities might need to be looked in a little bit more than others, but Mr. Paul Cox and indeed Dr. Azim Ibrahim, thanks indeed, and indeed Simon Nash and Reem Ibrahim as well. Thanks all for talking through a lively conversation. We'll have to watch what Parliament does over the course of the next 3 or 4 months. Well, up next on The Late Show Live.
And let there be no mistakes about this. Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him.
Well, a British man could face up to 7 years in prison in Singapore after being arrested at the airport for allegedly stealing a denim jacket in 2024. I'll be speaking to a former American law enforcement official about what the West can learn from this approach to law and order. This is The Late Show Live only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome back to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's warm and humid for many of us today, but low pressure is moving in and that will give heavy downpours, even some very lively thunderstorms. In fact, we're starting the day with heavy showers moving through parts of central and eastern England. This line of showery rain extending through northwest England into Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, and it's progressing north. Meanwhile, as temperatures rise through the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south, other thunderstorms will develop into the afternoon, interspersed by some sunshine, and it will feel warm in the sunshine, temperatures up to the mid or even high 20s, staying largely dry but fresher to the north and northeast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine for Shetland and Orkney, barely a drop of rain here. And we keep a fine end to the day for many parts of Scotland, generally northeastwards of Glasgow. But we do have this area of potentially thundery rain moving into southern and central Scotland as the day progresses. Showers easing off for a time across Northern Ireland, but this is the area where there is a thunderstorm warning. Parts of Wales into northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia, because of the risk of large hail, frequent lightning, torrential rain. We're talking about 50 millimetres in places in just a few hours. That could cause some serious impacts despite the fact that we've been so lacking in rainfall recently. More heavy downpours move into the south overnight and to start things off on Thursday. A warm and muggy start to the day here. And it's going to be a cloudy start for many parts of the UK on Thursday itself. We follow the track of this line of potentially thundery rain as it moves through central parts of the UK, albeit slowly, and some places again could see more than 50 millimetres through the day accumulating, and that amount of rain could cause flash flooding. Another thunderstorm warning in force. Quieter for Scotland, just a few showers drying up in the far south.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Well, a British man has been charged with theft in Singapore more than 2 years after he allegedly stole a single denim jacket from a shop at Changi Airport. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Never been to Singapore. Would love to, though. I mean, I've heard wonderful things. The police say the 26-year-old had already left the country by the time he was identified, but he was arrested when he passed through the same airport earlier this month. They don't forgive and they don't forget. Singapore is renowned for its strict approach to law and order, an ethos championed by its founding Prime Minister, a man we should all learn a lot from, Lee Kuan Yew.
And let there be no mistakes about this. Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him, or give it up. This is not a game of cards. This is your life and mine. I've spent a whole lifetime building this. And as long as I'm in charge, nobody's going to knock it down.
I literally have that man's autobiography next to my bed at home in London. It's called From Third World to First, and it's incredible. So much to be learnt about how to run a society efficiently and effectively. Well, with me now is the former FBI agent James Hamilton. James, this is a pretty... a lot of people might think, wow, that's pretty tough going. This guy could face 7 years in prison. He thought he got away with it for years, but the moment he stepped back on Singaporean soil, bam, he's charged.
Hey, good to see you. I thought it was very refreshing, and that tape was awesome about the iron will comment. But that's exactly what you need if you want to have rule of law. And that's exactly why you said you'd like to visit Singapore. And so many other people want to visit Singapore, is clearly it's safe and clearly they take law and order seriously. And I think that's a good thing. Will he do 7 years? Probably not. But here we are talking about it, and every British citizen watching this is going to know you don't screw around in Singapore.
To play devil's advocate with you, James, there are also rules that I think a lot of liberal-minded people would feel are not particularly good. You can be reprimanded by the police for crossing the road other than at a designated crossing point. This is something that I found slightly irritating about the United States of America, actually, the so-called jaywalking, which is not a thing in Britain. But ultimately that can be punished, and can be punished with increasing severity. Also sort of spitting chewing gum out on the street. Some of the punishments in Singapore include flogging. I mean, are we really sort of thinking about flogging as a potential remedy for society's ills?
Yeah, I think not, and not in America at least, and not in Great Britain that I'm aware of. But, you know, we're talking about the enforcement of law, and it's very difficult to start picking and choosing, you know, which laws we'll enforce. And I do appreciate the jaywalking sentiment, but, you know, we're seeing it here in the U.S. where, you know, municipalities have decided that certain laws are not worth pursuing, or my favorite is that, you know, shoplifting in some way they need it and therefore it's okay. You know, and we're looking at $47 billion in retail theft last year alone. And what ends up happening is stores, you know, they lock up goods that you and I would have, you know, picked up off a shelf years ago. Now we got to ring a buzzer waiting on somebody, or they just leave town. And that's just a fact. And we don't want to see that. And so I think, you know, we certainly want to, we don't want to just let shoplifting go. And I like to see that this happen. I don't think the guys can do 7 years, but it certainly sends a message. I mean, man, I got a speeding ticket in Ireland one time, and they tracked me down in the U.S. I was in a rental car. The Garda found me off the rental car information. I paid the ticket, and when I went back to Ireland, you know, 3 months later, I was kind of scared they were going to arrest me. So yeah, hey, good for them. And you know, that's what we do in a rule of law society, is we enforce the law. Certainly, I would not want to see jaywalking or gum spitting to be you know, punishable by death or, you know, jail. But goodness gracious, I think this is a refreshing story in kind of the craziness that we see every day when it comes to law and order in the world.
Yeah, it's strange. You're taught as a young child that stealing is wrong. It's one of the worst things that you can do. And then for a time in the United Kingdom, there was a rule that the police followed, that they would not pursue cases of shoplifting worth less than £200, effectively giving carte blanche to criminals, petty thieves and those who even work for more serious criminal operations to steal up to £200 of goods from a shop. I mean, I've been in some shops in South London where you can't look at a steak unless it's inside a little plastic box that has to be unlocked by the staff. I mean, these things, as you mentioned in your previous answer, just degrade society for the law-abiding.
Yeah, they degrade who we are. You know, the shop owner doesn't want to put the stakes behind the glass. He has to pay for that glass. He has to pay for that lock. It's it's not appetizing. It's not good for business. They don't want to do that either. But because municipalities decide, oh well, we're going to let people steal up to $200, and who sets the $200 is always curious to me. But what message are we sending to kids? It's okay to steal as long as it's less than 200. But what if it's more than that, Mom? That's not good. And certainly I like the old days where, people were held accountable and you knew the rules, and that's good. And that's a society I think we all would like to live in.
Something I found absolutely bizarre about the left in the United States of America is how justified they think not paying for public transport is. I think one of the things is in Britain, I think more people think that it's wrong if you bash through a barrier or don't pay for a train or a tube or a tram or whatever. Whereas in the United States, there's quite a large proportion of the left, actually, who think it is people's right to not pay for the subway in New York or the metro in DC. It's a really strange attitude to me.
Well, it's actually scary. It's scary because they've lost the concept that, this stuff has to be paid for by someone. And when we just choose to not pay for the service that we're using, well, how do you continue to pay for that service? And that's why we are, $43 trillion in debt. It's because we spend more than we take in, and, no one's held accountable. And that, it just can't stand. It just cannot stand. And I'm with you. I see the same stuff. I get extremely frustrated by it, and you're spot on.
Well, James Hamilton, thanks indeed for joining us and talking everything from shoplifting for denim jackets to chewing gum on the streets and indeed skipping the payment for public transport. It all feeds together, doesn't it? Well, James Hamilton, former FBI agent, thanks indeed for joining us. Well, let's turn now to another news story this evening where we have started to see a concerning incident, a concerning set of reports from the Pentagon. We're going to be doing that in the next hour. Let's stick with this story about Singapore and indeed whether we should follow their particular way of doing things. With me is my panel of the reporter Reason Magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and in London, GBNews contributor and comedian Paul Cox, and Labour commentator Simon Nash. Simon, was that previous conversation a bit too authoritarian for you?
Well, it's interesting. The People's Action Party in Singapore, in a way, a kind of a benevolent dictatorship for a long time. They actually regulated people's haircuts. I do wonder if the kind of spitting chewing gum in the road is a bit extreme. I often think about our potholed roads here in London, and or perhaps if we all spat our chewing gum into those roads, it would help fill in the potholes. It might actually make a real positive difference. Now, look,
or we could spit it into the bin.
Well, I mean, why not help fix the road with that sort of bitumen-like stuff? It's made of a very similar it has a very similar chemistry, and it would actually fill in a pothole if you did aim for the pothole. But yeah, otherwise the bin would be good. And I do think I had to go at someone yesterday for dropping a bit of litter, and I think more people should have that patriotic duty to do so, and actually to interfere with shoplifters as well. Shoplifters think no one's even going to bother shouting at them. Actually, if you shout and make a bit of a threat, and if everyone does that, if you're sort of a fighting age male, a phrase commonly used on GB News, well, actually do threaten shoplifters and use reasonable force if you can to stop them. And I think it was extremely irresponsible of the police chiefs in the past to say what the limits are for prosecution. If the limit was £50 or £200 before you prosecute a shoplifter, that should have been a state secret. It's outrageous that was ever published. And I think Singapore is the complete opposite in saying, well, actually, the limit is very much below $100 and the penalty is 7 years. I know if most people go to Singapore, they're going to think 50 times before daring to shoplift, and rightly so.
Azim, what do you make of this idea then that that actually we should perhaps as a society be enforcing this stuff more if the government won't bother?
Yeah, well, Tom, I'm delighted to hear that you're also a Lee Kuan Yew fan. I do believe he's probably the most fascinating and interesting leader of the last 100 years. In fact, Margaret Thatcher said he was the most fascinating leader she ever met. You know, he transformed a backwater fishing village into a global powerhouse, and now is the safest country in the world according to the Gallup safety survey. Look, the reality is that he managed to do this using, exactly as he said, an iron fist and iron will. And look, this particular case of the individual, you know, potentially being sentenced to 7 years, whatever the outcome of that, one thing I'm absolutely certain is that individual will not shoplift again in Singapore. And this is the effectiveness of such a policy.
That is so true. I'm afraid we're going to have to pause both Paul and Reem if we want to fit in this story, and I do want to fit in this next story just in the last couple of minutes of this hour. What is this story? Well, I've been enjoying a little taste of freedom here in America. Yes, for those listening on the radio, that is a bottle of Coca-Cola with the cap that actually comes off. No more wrestling with a piece of plastic every time you want a drink, or any spills that might matter, scratches to your face, gone. Sweet land of liberty indeed. In fact, I've taken the liberty of having an unbranded bottle for the sake of television here. And just look at this. For anyone watching in Britain, don't you miss doing that? Don't you miss that? Reem Ibrahim, we were talking earlier, you were saying this is one of the finest things that you found coming to this country.
It is. Literally 2 days after I moved to the United States on my work visa, I came and I bought a bottle of water, and I was so delighted that there were no tethered caps. And it was the first TikTok I made since coming to the US, because I was so surprised. I was like, you know what? This is what freedom looks like, because I don't have to have these silly EU regulations, and they are EU regulations, by the way, that force British companies to produce bottles with those stupid lids that always get in your face, they always hurt your mouth when you're drinking from them. It's terrible, and this is, by the way, a microcosm of what it means to really be free.
Emphasis on the word micro there, because Paul, a lot of people say, Tom, why do you get so worked up on this? It's trivial. I think sometimes the trivial things matter.
It's not trivial, because it's treating adults like children. It's saying you wouldn't be able to put these two things in a bin together because you're so stupid. I'm not talking directly at you, Tom. It's your birthday. After all, it's your birthday, and I wouldn't be so kind. Look, here's a little trick for you. If you like bottled water in the UK, buy from Amazon. Amazon water, no idea what's in it, but I buy it and the cap comes off. I don't know if it gets shipped from the United States.
For this particular segment live on television, other brands of water are.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I'm looking for a deal, because you can only get 100 bottles for 20p.
Ibrahim, thanks indeed.
Sorry, it's been a short segment, but indeed we've got a lot more still to come on this programme. Yes, still to come.
How do you think you're going to be remembered, let's say, 100 years from now?
Remembered? Well, I think probably what I'd like people to say about me 100 years from now is, boy, she looks great for her age.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome back to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's warm and humid for many of us today, but low pressure is moving in, and that will give heavy downpours, even some very lively thunderstorms. In fact, we're starting the day with heavy showers moving through parts of central and eastern England. This line of showery rain extending through northwest England into Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, and it's progressing north. Meanwhile, as temperatures rise through the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south, other thunderstorms will develop into the afternoon, interspersed by some sunshine, and it will feel warm in the sunshine, temperatures up to the mid or even high 20s, staying largely dry but fresher to the north and northeast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine for Shetland and Orkney, barely a drop of rain here. And we keep a fine end to the day for many parts of Scotland, generally northeastwards of Glasgow. But we do have this area of potentially thundery rain moving into southern and central Scotland as the day progresses. Showers easing off for a time across Northern Ireland, but this is the area where there is a thunderstorm warning. Parts of Wales into northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia, because of the risk of large hail, frequent lightning, torrential rain. We're talking about 50 millimetres in places in just a few hours. That could cause some serious impacts despite the fact that we've been so lacking in rainfall recently. More heavy downpours move into the south overnight and to start things off on Thursday. A warm and muggy start to the day here. And it's going to be a cloudy start for many parts of the UK on Thursday itself. We follow the track of this line of potentially thundery rain as it moves through central parts of the UK, albeit slowly, and some places again could see more than 50 millimetres through the day accumulating, and that amount of rain could cause flash flooding. Another thunderstorm warning in force. Quieter for Scotland, just a few showers, drying up in the far south.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Good evening, indeed good morning. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping both Britain and America.
Jolene, 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 Jolene. Please don't take him just because you can.
Well, the legendary country music star Dolly Parton has sadly died at the age of 80.
She came from nothing and was able to overcome so many trials, and I think that she's able to show that with her presence and continue to give such love to everyone in the world. And
as you'd expect, heartfelt tributes have been pouring in from all around the world, but perhaps none more so than the home state of Dolly Parton herself. Yes, we'll be hearing from Toria Brooke in Nashville, Tennessee, on this country music legend.
So, Abdul, you're a doctor, right? Selectively. I am. So you think it's okay for a parent to slash his kid's ding-a-ling off?
Well, that was Dr. Abdul El Sayed facing a grilling on Fox News last night. But what he said next has shocked the United States. We'll be discussing the fallout and his chances of winning this crucial swing Senate election in Michigan. I'm Tom Harwood, and this is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel of reporter at Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer for the New Line Institute for Strategy and Policy, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and in London this morning is GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox and Labour commentator Simon Nash. Well, I said this evening and this morning, but I mean, if you're watching in Australia, then it's probably this afternoon, I don't know. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Or indeed, this morning. I mean, yeah, whenever. Thanks for joining us. Moving on to our main news this evening. The legendary country singer Dolly Parton has died at the age of 80, following a lengthy health battle. The legendary singer spent over 65 years in the music industry, performing some of the country's biggest ever hits, including 9 to 5, Jolene, I Will Always Love You, and an iconic cover of Islands in the Stream. Well, President Trump has led tributes, describing Parton as one of the greatest country singers ever and saying her death is a true loss for millions of people. Well, let's take you straight to Nashville now, where I'm joined by the journalist and broadcaster Toria Brooke. Toria, thanks indeed for joining us. Nashville, in many ways, the epicentre of country music and held such a special place in Dolly Parton's heart.
Yeah, I think Dolly was probably the closest thing to Elvis in a female sense. She's praised for her songwriting. So a lot of the musicians that are around today, they celebrate her for that, because as we know, not all music artists are the best writers, but she was prized for that. And she started out in Eastern Tennessee. She came from humble beginnings and she came to Nashville with a dream at 18 years old. So she really never got rid of her roots. Dolly Parton really championed the South. And I know you guys are out in Britain, but the American South is one of a kind, and she did not try to become someone else. Even though she had a lot of fame, she truly championed her background. And I think that's why people grow to love her. And she was unabashedly herself. She did a lot of philanthropic work, as well as being involved in the community in general. So I think Nashville truly is mourning.
We saw tributes pour in today, of course, from everyone from President Donald Trump to Bernie Sanders, the spectrum of political opinion in this country, but also so many musicians and figures for the entertainment industry who really looked up to her as some sort of mother or grandmother figure. But also we heard from the Country Music Hall of Fame, based out there in Nashville, Tennessee, which said that she was the most important native of Tennessee, adding that her legacy, not just about celebrity, but also humanity. Moving words.
Yeah, and she had the Imagination Museum. She has Dollywood. So there's many things that were in Tennessee in itself that were all about Dolly and about educating and the youth. So I know John Rich, a friend of mine, he made a comment about her passing, as well as many other celebrities and conservative pundits. I think it's a great loss because you know what she did? She actually united both sides. It didn't matter what your political beliefs were. Everybody loved Dolly. So it's definitely a genuine loss.
And that perhaps is signified by something quite special that's going to happen in 25 minutes' time. And that's that the Empire State Building is going to light up in her honour. And I'm just trying to comprehend what it must have felt like had she known that this would happen. For a little girl growing up in rural Tennessee, in desperate poverty, to think that when she died years later, that perhaps the most famous building in the world, in a shining liberal city on the eastern seaboard, that would light up? I mean, that she would be so dear to people in red state flyover country, but also out there on the coasts.
Yeah, and you know, one of the most amazing facts that I love to hear about her is she was married for 60 years. So her husband passed in 2025 and now she will join him. But it's amazing to think about because you don't hear about that anymore. You don't hear about long-standing marriages. And I think that is, you know, the emblem of the American dream. So in many ways, beyond music, Dolly certainly represented an American culture here that I think we're striving to get back to. And obviously, President
so understated and behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah. He didn't even want to come out in public. They went to one party together at the beginning of her stardom. And he said, I never want to go out again. And so she didn't make him, which I think is sort of special that he was her support behind the scenes and she respected his wishes. And, you know, when you reach that level of fame, I think you need someone who's a strong foundation that's grounded. So it's very interesting to hear about their love story. And I hope that it inspires other people, as I'm sure it will, as everyone's kind of studying her again. And maybe the people that didn't know her music will be brought to her.
How important do you think her Christian faith was to her, and how she lived her life, and frankly, how she approached her fame?
She actually spoke about God a lot, and she said that she felt every day she was supposed to do something or be someone for someone else. So I think that's a very inspirational aspect of life, and I think that she wanted to be a positive inspiration to others. And I'm sure as the younger generation learns about her today, and maybe they didn't know her as well, they will be inspired. And that's just kind of what I'm seeing across social media, especially on the conservative side. Many of the women are celebrating her views on God. And it's an inspiration because we don't really see that as often, especially not now.
I've said this before tonight, but I do think it bears repeating that this week we're going to see tributes to Dolly Parton in some of the most conservative churches in the country. But we're also going to see gay clubs light up with her music and people sing along to her songs. I mean, it's hard to think of another figure in the entertainment world. It's hard to think of another sort of cultural figure that unites such disparate groups of people.
Yeah, well, I mean, one could say President Trump did the same before his Democrat friends were thrilled that he ran for president, as well as Elvis Presley, who did not get into politics. But I would say President Trump, even and Elvis Presley, have a lot in common. There are only so many people who are such big names, and it is encouraging to see so many people from different walks of life celebrate Dolly Parton. And I would imagine one day, you know, President Trump will have probably just as big of a celebration, despite the fact that maybe he gets, you know, hit in the media. But the strongest people and the strongest names tend to gain all different kinds of attraction.
Yeah, I do think it's going. I think there'll be less love for Donald Trump in some of the most liberal cities in the United States than there is for Dolly Parton. It's hard to think of, you know, Hollywood feeling the same way about Donald Trump than they do for Dolly Parton.
Well, you know, Hollywood extends to Washington. Many people say that, you know, Washington, D.C. was the people who couldn't make it in Hollywood. But I tend to see a lot of theatrics in Washington as well. I mean, and hopefully by the time it happens, I hope it's not for a very long time, I think people will realize all the accomplishments he had. But I certainly know that he loved Dolly, and he ordered all of our flags to be at half-mast.
There's a saying in Britain that's very similar to what you just said. I think it's probably less applicable in the United States, but it goes that politics is showbiz for ugly people, and I think looking at British politics, that's probably. But
some people broke the grain right now. We've got some good-looking people in Washington as of right now.
Well, I think America just generally takes more. I mean, I've been hanging out in the White House briefing room for a few days this week, and just looking at the press pool in the United States compared to the sort of stereotypical Westminster London journalist of sort of being a little bit scruffy and all the rest of it. You guys are immaculate. I mean, like, broadcasting in the United States is just on another level.
It ain't easy being good looking. No, I would tend to agree with you, especially in the Northeast and the West Coast, both coasts. But Nashville is very interesting as well. Hey, that makes sense why Dolly came from here. So people like to.
And Dolly herself had a quote, didn't she? I think we've played out this clip earlier on the channel. I wonder if we can dig it out somehow, because she said something along the lines of, "It takes a lot of money to look this cheap." Which was her acerbic sense of humour, because of course she never did. I hear that we are digging up this because I think one of the other things, Toria, is just how good a sense of humour Dolly Parton had, how quick and witty she was in so many of those interviews.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was more than music. I believe she was an actual cultural icon in terms of her personality. And as you know, especially with Trump, there aren't many people who will say what they want and aren't afraid of the response. So she lived her life. She actually had an interview, I watched it today, where she said that she has zero regrets, that nothing that she ever did in her life she believes was wrong, that she at the time made the best decisions that she could have, which I thought that was an interesting statement. I haven't heard that before.
Well, Toria, at this point, let's have a listen to that clip from that interview I referenced moments ago.
So, you know, when I talk about making money, I said, you know, I need to make a lot of money because it would amaze you to know how much it costs to make a person look this cheap. And there's a lot of truth in that.
Just the most amazing self-deprecating wit, one of a kind. Well, Toria Brooke, thanks so much for talking through the remarkable life and legacy of an amazing cultural icon in Dolly Parton. Thanks indeed. Let's turn now to my panel. I'm not going to read all their names again because I've read them I don't know how many times this evening, and frankly, if you've stuck with us this long, you'll know them. So why don't we start with Dr. Azim Ibrahim on this one. We've spoken a lot about sort of her wit, we've spoken about her business acumen, we've spoken a bit about her Christian faith as well. Is there anything we haven't covered?
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it. You know, see the fact that nobody has had a bad word to say about her across the political spectrum, across the celebrity spectrum, I think is a testament to her legacy that she left. You know, she is an icon, she's an era-defining musician, she was a philanthropist, and she brought everybody together with her music and her philanthropy, and I think this is a great legacy to leave. You know, I can't think of a better legacy by anybody in recent memory.
Paul Cox, did she ever do anything wrong? I mean, I know it's sort of, you know, we're only hours after the poor woman's death, but I mean, sometimes I think characters like Dolly Parton wouldn't want an incredibly sycophantic tribute. Do you know what I mean? Sort of. Yeah, I think there are some characters in life who would sort of want to say, "Oh, yeah, no, okay, I wasn't Jesus," you know, or there was some sort of warts and all. Maybe it's too soon. Am I stepping out of line by saying that?
No, there's a couple of things about Dolly Parton we've not mentioned tonight, but we'll just leave that to the imagination of the audience. And it's of bad taste to mention it now, I guess. I almost shocked Tom Harwood then, which is my favourite thing of the evening so far. But you're absolutely right. She didn't take herself seriously enough for us to want to take her so seriously in her death. Everybody is talking about the things that she meant to them because she never told us. If you look at a lot of famous people, they tell you what it is that's special about them because no one else is saying it. So she never had to. Her music spoke for her, her character spoke for her. She didn't need to tell people what to like about her, and she was incredibly authentic as well, which is quite unusual. A lot of people fake authenticity now, but Dolly Parton, her look never changed. She never kowtowed. By the way, when she became incredibly famous, particularly in the film 9 to 5, she came under a lot of criticism for looking the way that she did. But she embraced it. She thought it was classy, she liked it, it was her.
Really? She authentically looked...
I was going to answer the question that Tom posed to Paul because, of course, one of the people that weren't, you know, a particular fan of Dolly Parton was Ronald Reagan, who said that he had watched some of her videos and sort of the music videos that were coming across, and Dolly Parton, to his surprise, was smoking marijuana, and he thought that it was encouraging the youths to smoke marijuana. Of course, as a libertarian, I'm all pro-marijuana. I think it's brilliant and it's legal in lots of states, which is fantastic and one of the great parts of being in America. That being said, you know, some of the more social conservatives were not a fan of Dolly Parton.
Or perhaps at the time, perhaps that view has mellowed. Sad to hear about Ronald Reagan, who I think is generally quite a good chap. Simon, sorry, you were trying to go in there.
Oh yeah, it just reminded me of you know, General Charles de Gaulle in France. You know, at one point he said, "The youth it is or miniskirts et pantalons," referring to the famous gentleman who escaped a Guinea prison and had a film made about him, and this. His adventure plus miniskirts was corrupting the youth, and of course Dolly Parton was in fact once young, and her style of dress is probably corrupting in the eyes of President Reagan, which is to her credit perhaps. Yeah, no, I was going to jest. I mean, you said how authentic she was. She authentically looked about 29 until her 70s, which is. Why not? Why not? She loved it, the crowd loved it, and I definitely enjoyed watching her at Glastonbury. Probably the first woman over the age of 60 I've ever found attractive, I must say.
Wow.
Can I just say that I find lots of women over 60 attractive?
Good. As long as they're not your cousin.
I am a big fan of the waspy women.
Hot.
Is that just because you think they're going to get billions of money and you'd quite like to get in there?
I've just always made a point of trying to, you know, encourage that cohort to feel free to like me.
Wow, it's very Gustav from the Grand Budapest Hotel, if that reference means anything to anyone. But yes, on that point, shall we draw this particular conversation to a close? Because still to come. And do indeed let me know your thoughts by visiting gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts on, frankly, anything that was discussed or indeed suggested in that last particular conversation. Well, up next on The Late Show Live.
So, Abdul, you're a doctor, right?
Selectively. I am.
So you think it's okay for a parent to slash his kid's ding-a-ling off?
Well, that was Dr. Abdul El Sayed facing a grilling on Fox News, but what he said next has shocked America. Has it tanked his chance to become the next senator in that particular race? Well, this is The Late Show Live only on GB News. Well, a Democratic Senate candidate in Michigan has faced backlash after comparing gender transition procedures for children with circumcision during a heated television interview. Seriously. Abdul El Sayed made the comparison after a Fox News host, Jesse Waters, challenged him over whether parents should be able to approve medical procedures for their children.
Idea that the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. I just think the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. And if you're a minor,
you want to try on kids?
Now, if you disagree with that, if you disagree that healthcare decisions need to be made by a doctor and their parents and a patient, then we think we agree to disagree. But you know, you want to put government inside.
So Abdul, you're a doctor, right?
Selectively. I am.
So you think it's okay for a parent to slash his kid's ding-a-ling off? You think that's okay?
I mean, do you really want to have this conversation? Are you circumcised?
Yeah, but I mean, that's a
Jesse,
personal question.
Okay,
doctor.
So you probably should want to move on. You probably should want to move on.
Is circumcision's different than castration?
I think it's a problem. It's a problem that you think that you get to decide what happens between a parent, a doctor, and a patient. And I'm just saying that, yes, circumcision is surgery on a kid's ding-a-ling. So if you really want to bring that up, you can. I just think you guys are really selective about how you want to talk about these things.
Abdul, Michigan's not going for that. That is sick stuff.
Ouch. Well, that was difficult to watch. The exchange has drawn criticism from both Conservatives and some commentators on the left as El Sayed campaigns for a crucial Senate seat in the upcoming midterm elections in November. Well, with me is the American journalist Tara Palmieri. Tara, were your toes curling as much as mine were during that particular interview?
It was definitely awkward. And that was the height of the awkwardness of that interview. I actually watched it live because I wanted to see how it was going to go down. But yeah, was a weird answer, but the way it was set up as well, I mean, the right is just so obsessed with these culture wars. And I really think that this rarely happens, this sex change for minors. It's like such an extreme, rare instance. And they just run with it. And I think in a way, El Sayed was trying to say, like, look at how absurd you sound. I'm going to go even more absurd. But I don't know that it worked. I mean, I think people just have decided they don't like him for various reasons, especially on the right. I mean, he's the boogeyman right now. They're trying to make him into the next Mamdani.
The things that he says.
It's not so much the things he says. I think it's also the people that he's aligned himself with. The fact that he has campaigned with Democratic Socialist candidates, and he doesn't say the things that they say. They say it, but then he lets them endorse them. They go out and campaign together. He appears on their programming. I've had him on my show, actually, and I found him to be incredibly intelligent, incredibly charismatic. I mean, we jousted, and I tried to, hold his feet to the fire over the fact that he campaigns with Hassan Piker. It's different to, go on his show than it is to go out there and actually campaign
to explain for a British audience who Hassan Piker is, an incredibly controversial character who some have called anti-Semitic, who has said in one interview answer that he thought the Americans deserved 9/11.
Yes, he did say that. He's retracted it since. But he's incredibly popular on the left among the Bernie bros. He's very popular among the Democratic base, frankly. And El Sayed speaks to those same people. And that's why you saw him win in this primary when he was outspent 10-1. I mean, he has an incredibly compelling message. If you take away from the fact that he is being attacked by the left and the right, and by the left, I mean the establishment of the left, his message is incredibly compelling. He is talking about Medicare for all.
Tara, it sounds a bit like the Tea Party, right? That happened on the other side of the spectrum in 2010, 2012. I mean, that was initially, it was really exciting for Republicans who thought that, they were going to get their balanced budgets and everything was going to be great. But actually, there was a darker side to the Tea Party in some instances. And it was perhaps a contributing factor as to why Mitt Romney failed to win the 2012 presidential election. Ultimately, do you think that there's an equal and opposite reaction happening on the left with these sort of surprise primary wins from these radical left Democrats who are being outspent? I mean, as Ted Cruz was outspent, as so many of the Tea Party Republicans were outspent in 2010 and yet continued to win their primaries and in some cases their generals if they were safer states. Is there something
I think you have to look at why they're winning. They're winning because they're speaking to what the people actually want. So if they are winning, then maybe you have to take a listen and actually hear what
private parts.
No, that is just him responding to a question. But if you actually listen to what El Sayed says, what is he campaigning on? Medicare for all. A lot of Americans want that. I know that you live in the UK and you have that already. But here in the US, it's really expensive to have health insurance. Americans are dealing with inflation, which I know you're also dealing with in the UK. And we are dealing with not just inflation, but stagflation. We have huge trade wars going on right now with Canada. Michigan is going to bear the brunt of that because of the automaking industry. He is talking to kitchen table issues, which is exactly what a populist candidate would do from the right or the left. Yes, there are parts of both parties that get ugly.
A populist candidate like Bernie Sanders would never have answered that interview question from Jesse Waters.
I don't know. He was being facetious. To me, I think he was being facetious. I think he was pointing out the absurdity of this entire argument. It is literally like, it's an absurd argument
Tara, he was drawing an equivalence between an incredibly common minor procedure that most American boys go through with something that you yourself admitted was an extreme thing that barely ever happens, that even most people on the pro-transgender side of things would say at most children should have puberty blockers or delayers, not surgery on their genitals. I mean, who says that?
The person who brought up surgery on their genitals was Jesse Waters. Like, he used that phrase. He was the one who brought that idea into the conversation. And so I think El Sayed matched him by being like, oh, I have actually performed surgery on genitals. It's called a circumcision. So, I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, he wasn't the one who was like, let me just take a big leap to surgery on genitals. I still think that this conversation about trans children is just like, they're trying to go to the most extreme place, and they're trying to make him answer a question on one of the most extreme points that the Democrats, some of them are standing by. I don't know why they're still standing by it.
How hard is it to say that you don't think that there should be surgery on children's genitals? Why was that difficult for him?
I think he should have said it, but I don't, like, I'm not him, you know what I mean? He could have said whatever he wanted, but I still think the fact that it keeps, that is, if you actually watch the 34-minute interview, which I highly encourage everyone to watch because it's incredible, he's trying to get his point across about what he actually stands for. And the entire time, Jesse Waters tries to drag him into a culture war like the one we are talking about right now, a culture war that very few, even Democrats, agree with. And I doubt he does either. So, like, this is the point. And I personally think that in that place, I mean, he knew what he was doing. He was going into the lion's den. It's Fox News. But again, he's got to run in Michigan, so he needs a Fox News voter, and he was smart to do it. Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, he would be the only Muslim member
like Pete Buttigieg excels on Fox News, whereas El Sayed seemed to flop.
I don't think, that moment maybe determined the flop, but if you actually watch the full interview, I thought he handled Jesse Waters pretty well.
Sometimes just one answer determines a flop. I mean, Joe Biden in the presidential debate against Trump. That one answer where he trailed off and didn't know what he was saying, that one answer defined the entire interview.
That was totally different. The guy literally blanked out on screen as if he wasn't there. That is a completely different thing. That was a reflection of his health. He's the president of the United States. He couldn't answer a basic question. I mean, that is a completely different example.
2012 Republican primary, when he couldn't remember his 5-point plan and then said, oops, in front of the audience. That defined that entire debate. He was very good in the rest of the debate. That one moment where he forgot that answer or forgot his 5-point plan, one of the points, that sank his campaign.
Isn't it funny, though, how Trump can literally trail off on any sentence and not finish it and start dancing and never end sentences at all, and nobody cares? I mean, he literally does not complete sentences when he speaks. He falls asleep in the middle of meetings and nobody seems to care at all. No. This happens all the time. I mean, if you actually listen to his speeches, they're hilarious. They are not even, they're not real. He talks about sharks that have batteries in them. He talks about windmills half the time. You don't even know where he's going. He calls it the weave. I mean, let's talk about people who sound insane.
I mean,
but you're clearly
he speaks in an incredibly entertaining way.
Okay, you find it entertaining. I thought the El Sayed thing was entertaining. You are already coming to it with your, you're coming with it with your bias in the same way. And that's what Fox wanted. They're already trying to paint him. They're like, Abdul, they want to, you're pushing Sharia law. Like, they want to turn him into the next Mamdani. This country's not like your country. We don't have, you have a pretty healthy number of Muslims in your public life, in civic life. He would be one of the few Muslim leaders. And so they are playing on the xenophobia. And that's exactly what they're doing with him. I wish that it wasn't this way in America. I really wish it wasn't. But this is what we're seeing, and it's playing out on TV for everyone to see it.
Tara, I think a lot of people watching this might be a little bit confused that we started talking about an answer where this individual was offered a bear trap in front of him, and he decided to walk straight into it rather than say, no, I'm not going to walk into the bear trap. And
he was literally throwing out
because he's a Muslim.
Well, no, I think a lot of it is. I think a lot of this is because he is a Muslim. I mean, it came up in the conversation. If you, like I said, I don't know if you listened to all 34 minutes of it, but the fact that he is a Muslim came up, and it comes up frequently. And I think
that's not the bit that we're talking about here. That's not the clip that we put to at the start of that interview. Frankly, that's not why we're doing this interview.
Yeah, no, you're talking about gotcha journalism, and I'm actually talking about what happened. So I'm giving everyone who didn't get to watch the whole 34-minute interview what really went down. And I encourage them to go and watch it themselves.
And that is valuable. And I'm glad that you're doing that. Absolutely. But I also do think that it is pertinent of a political candidacy where we have seen so many in the history of both of our great countries where one moment can define someone. And it does seem like this is the hyper-viral moment where actually this is painting the image of this person perhaps in the minds of most.
If he was running across the entire country, sure. But he's running in Michigan. And I don't know if you know much about Mike Rogers. Have you even heard about him before? Have you ever seen him on TV?
I know very little about Mike Rogers.
You probably couldn't even point him out on the street, okay? But Abdul El Sayed is a household name right now, okay? And there is nothing you can do that is better than name ID. And we still have a few more months to go. Just ask Donald Trump. Think of some of the crude things he said on the campaign trail that people thought.
Let's
think about what Trump said about women. You can grab them by the pee. Everyone said that would tank his campaign. And look what we saw just around this time, a few months later. Anything can happen in American politics. So I would definitely wait. And I don't think you quite understand the temperature of American politics right now either, and how people are really feeling. Yeah. I think you don't quite understand that people are really angry. We are in a war. Our gas prices are at $5 a gallon. It's incredibly expensive. And on top of that,
we would love gas prices to be at $5 a gallon, Tara.
I'm sure you would.
Your gas is like 3
but you also
times
don't have to
cheaper
pay
than
for
our gas.
healthcare. Yeah, but you also don't have to pay for healthcare.
Because we listened to people like the radical Democrats who in 2009, 2010 were saying ban fracking. We followed Greta Thunberg, right? And our energy is 3 times more expensive than your energy.
You also went into Brexit. You also went into Brexit, which ruined your economy.
How did that affect our energy prices, Tara?
It affected the price of everything else. So that's the other thing. So maybe if you have more money in your pocket, you don't care about that, but it's not just gas. It's inflation. It's everything is more expensive. And then imagine this, imagine having to pay, I'm going to think like 600 to 700 more pounds per month per person in your family to have healthcare. Okay. That is just to go to the doctor and then pay another 50 to 100 pounds to see that doctor. And then if you want a procedure, even the most basic procedure that requires anesthesia, you have to pay another 1,000 pounds. Okay, so just put aside
Brits, that does sound
35,000.
Absolutely absurd. You're completely correct, Tara. To a Brit, that sounds bonkers. But then you've got to put the context here that the average American earns 40%
People are going
more
bankrupt
than the average Brit.
in America. People go bankrupt in America over their health.
Average person.
Do you know that people go bankrupt in America over their health? They go bankrupt because they have a health scare. It's horrible.
Tara,
that's a horrible
situation to
situation
get me to defend the American system of healthcare, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Well,
this
guy is actually
I prefer
running
the Singaporean system of healthcare accounts.
Yeah. And the amazing thing about this is this man is running on the thing that no one can defend. Okay. So there you go. He might win. Who knows? If things are that bad in November, he might win. And maybe Brits will put up with the petroleum or whatever, but they're not going to put up with this here in America, and especially not if it's impacting the car industry in Michigan. The lobby there is incredibly powerful.
Because we're talking about healthcare, and your average Briton might think that healthcare, there's no such thing as free healthcare in America, but we've already discussed Medicare for all. We haven't touched on Medicaid, but that's also something that exists. I mean, there are huge. I mean, it's some of the largest proportion of federal spending is on healthcare subsidies to people who can't afford it.
Do you know how poor you have to be on Medicaid or You know how poor you have to be?
Really quite poor,
you
but
have to
actually to a Brit, it might not be that poor.
No. You can't have a job. You can't have been employed. So you literally cannot have a job. You have to literally be collecting a form of social service. You cannot have a job to be on Medicaid. So
what a lot of people might not understand is it's people who are in jobs but fall in the gap that are the people that are going bankrupt over healthcare, not the very, very poorest in society. And yet, there are some strange things that are happening in healthcare in America because the Trump administration decided it would stop funding gender reassignment procedures with public money for children. And one state, just last week I think it was, said that they'd use state taxes to fund these procedures for children. I mean, I think your average Brit would think, hang on, I thought no one had any healthcare paid for the government at all, and the American government, at least in some states, is paying for sex
What
change
state is this in? I want to fact check this one. What state is this in?
I believe it might be New Mexico, but I might be wrong on that one.
Gender reassignment in New Mexico. Let's see.
Please do search for children.
This
for puberty
seems
blockers.
like,
yeah.
and I don't know how this would have been possible. There are no exact total counts of gender reassignment performed annually in New Mexico.
It's a story that we covered recently on the show.
This is not, listen, I don't know much about this, but getting state care, I don't know how that works.
In terms of some
actually,
in Britain.
In America, there are some states that have their own healthcare systems, like Massachusetts. Mitt Romney actually became popular because he created his own healthcare system within Massachusetts. So maybe New Mexico has their own. And then I don't know if that's how they decide. I mean, this is a really big debate in America.
But have you found
federalism
the story? I mean,
or
it is verifiably true.
It's verifiably true. Okay, well, I've never heard about it before. It's something I had learned about, and obviously I'm a reporter in the U.S. covering politics, and I'd never heard that story before. But I will say that if there are state funds being used, that is a state issue, not a federal issue, because our states do have their own healthcare programs, and they receive subsidies from the federal government, and they can do it with what they like. So, you know, I don't know what to tell you about New Mexico, if that is correct.
Yeah. No, sorry, Tara. This was not an interview about New Mexico. This was an interview about Michigan, and we have rather strayed from our original point, so I apologise for that. Just one final point to put to you.
Yeah.
Do you think that this election is genuinely a close one to call?
Yeah, I do. I think it will be close. Because Mike Rogers, he lost in the last election. Trump carried that state by 80,000 points, and he still lost to a Democrat. And he's running again. So, and Michigan is a purple state. Anything can happen. And it depends on how angry people are. Like, I think also if people just stay home, that's another problem. If they just decide they don't want to vote for Trump, and if the auto worker industry, if they decide that it is in their interest to get all of their workers out there and vote for a Democrat, they think that's going to be better for them in the middle of these trade wars. Yeah, anything can happen. It's Michigan, baby. That's why you got to pay attention. And I wouldn't discount it because he made some weird comment. But I will tell you this, you're going to hear a lot more crazy stories about him.
Yeah, I think ultimately that is such a valid point. The tariffs could decide everything here, and it does seem particularly bonkers that this massive argument is happening now between the United States and Canada. What are we, just 3 months out from the November 3rd elections? I mean, it seems extraordinary when so many of these states do so much trade with Canada. But Tara Palmieri, thank you so much for such an extended conversation. We weren't planning to talk for this long, but you know what? It's just been so fascinating. I'm glad that you've been with us this evening. Huge appreciation. American journalist Tara Palmieri there. Appreciate your time. Well, up next on The Late Show Live. Why are pizza restaurants so busy around the Pentagon tonight? Are their staffers prepping for a very late night? Should we all be worried? If you have no idea what I'm talking about, well, I'll explain it all next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome back to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's warm and humid for many of us today, but low pressure is moving in, and that will give heavy downpours, even some very lively thunderstorms. In fact, we're starting the day with heavy showers moving through parts of central and eastern England. This line of showery rain extending through northwest England into Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, and it's progressing north. Meanwhile, as temperatures rise through the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south, Other thunderstorms will develop into the afternoon, interspersed by some sunshine, and it will feel warm in the sunshine, temperatures up to the mid or even high 20s, staying largely dry but fresher to the north and northeast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine for Shetland and Orkney, barely a drop of rain here. And we keep a fine end to the day for many parts of Scotland, generally northeastwards of Glasgow. But we do have this area of potentially thundery rain moving into southern and central Scotland as the day progresses. Showers easing off for a time across Northern Ireland, but this is the area where there is a thunderstorm warning. Parts of Wales into northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia, because of the risk of large hail, frequent lightning, torrential rain. We're talking about 50 millimetres in places in just a few hours. That could cause some serious impacts despite the fact that we've been so lacking in rainfall recently. More heavy downpours move into the south overnight and to start things off on Thursday. A warm and muggy start to the day here. And it's going to be a cloudy start for many parts of the UK on Thursday itself. We follow the track of this line of potentially thundery rain as it moves through central parts of the UK, albeit slowly, and some places again could see more than 50 millimetres through the day accumulating, and that amount of rain could cause flash flooding. Another thunderstorm warning in force. Quieter for Scotland, just a few showers, drying up in the far south.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Now, could pizza orders help us predict the Third World War? Well, one viral social media account draws a linkage between high volumes of pizza orders around the Pentagon and the US government planning another war, or at least a significant military operation. Could busy pizza joints suggest staffers at the Pentagon are prepping for a late night in the office? Well, tonight the Twitter account Pentagon Pizza Report observes the following. The closest Domino's pizza place to the Pentagon is reporting unusually high traffic. The closest Papa John's pizza shop to the Pentagon is also reporting about double as much traffic as it normally does. The second closest Domino's pizza shop to the Pentagon is reporting marginally higher traffic. And Freddy's Beach Bar, which is one enjoyed by one member of this panel, is reporting slightly below average traffic, meaning that the people aren't going to the physical bar. Perhaps they're a little bit too busy to nip out for a drink or two. Well, with me now is my panel, reporter at Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, and in London, GB News contributor and comedian Paul Cox, and the Labour commentator Simon Nash. Now, Reem, I happen to know that you have visited this particular bar that is underutilised tonight before, so let's start with you.
It is amazing. It is one of the best bars in the DC area, I will say. They do karaoke 7 nights a week.
You love karaoke, don't you?
I was there Sunday night till 1 a.m. Okay, it is amazing. It is the best bar in the DMV area. I will say what's interesting is that these Pentagon staffers clearly are only interested in eating pizza on a late night. I'd get really bored of that if I was, you know, working in the office late, only ordering pizza. What's wrong with a Chinese? What's wrong with an Indian? What's wrong with Thai? My question is, why only pizza?
Oh, well, that's I suppose that's a profound question. But shall we return to some of the geopolitics here? Azim, this strategy, well, it seems silly, right, looking at how busy the pizza places are. But the night of the Venezuela operation, we were seeing similar indications.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that particular bar could be vacant at the moment is because Reem is not there. She's here with us.
I bring all the joy.
Yeah, that could be a very viable explanation. But look, the reality is this is a fantastic example of open source intelligence being utilised by experts who are kind of looking at it and trying to extrapolate what's going on. And it actually stands up. You know, the evidence actually shows that when the pizza's orders go up, there is actually some sort of activity. Let's just hope that that activity activity is related to the CIA director visiting Russia and they're working on some sort of peace deal, some sort of peace negotiation, and is not related to any other military activity, I think that will probably be the most positive outcome from all of this.
We can but hope. Simon Nash, as I mentioned, we have seen this be a relatively accurate indicator of late night working in the Pentagon in evenings past. What do you think might be going on?
Well, hopefully something to do with peace. You know, I do hope that politicians in Russia are looking to get rid of Vladimir Putin. Ukraine is actually a meat grinder for Russian citizens. The age of recruitment for soldiers, I think it went up from a maximum age of sort of 45 to it's now about 60 they're recruiting people. So there aren't going to be many men left in Russia. Very good if you want a beautiful Russian wife, but otherwise not good for the people of Russia at all. And I think hopefully there's a solution here, and it would be awful to go to war. I know, well, all of us haven't really seen war. You know, it's easy to glorify it, isn't it, with sort of, you know, sunglasses, tanks and cool guns, but it's an awful thing, and I really hope that it's not leading to some kind of World War III, and they are in fact working towards peace. And look, Russia isn't getting anywhere in Ukraine, they're just wasting money and life, so that needs to be well known.
Paul Cox, have we all lost our minds? Can we get a comedian to bring us back to ground here? Are we reading too much into how busy pizza places around the Pentagon are?
Well, Simon's lost his mind. Oh, I hope they're discussing peace. What a lefty thing to say. Of course they're not discussing peace. No one discusses peace over pizza.
It's not the Department of Defence anymore, is it? It's the Department of War.
Exactly. They're going to war. It's all, like he says, tanks and sunglasses and cool guns. I don't know what films Simon's been watching. But, I mean, try watching The World at War as a documentary. There's nothing cool about that. Look, I think it's a great indicator. Dr. Azim said it was. Who am I to argue with him? Now, it is a great indicator, isn't it? And we've seen it backed up by evidence. Pizza, by the way, Reem, is just easy. Everyone likes it. There's not much mess. When I used to run the team helping to deliver London Cycle Hire, and we'd work late into the night, I'd buy them pizza. When there's a late night one here, and when Tom Harwood is having to host some...
Hire, the Pentagon...
Yeah.
I've done it all.
No, absolutely. I mean, like planning the next war and planning a cycle lane in, I don't know, Lambeth. It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same.
Reem, I suppose there is a really important point there, Reem, which is that if you order some sort of Chinese or curry, you can have sticky fingers, you can have different pots of everything. I mean, it's a nightmare. You can't plan a military operation, you know, with all of these different pots and someone's ordered your boona, but you're trying to share it. And it's a mess.
You know what this reminds me of? Is that scene in Gavin Station where he's like, oh my God, you know, why does everyone like share everybody else? No, I want if I order a boona, I want to have it myself. And that's mine, and I don't want everybody else dipping in my curries. You know what? You are right. The benefit of a pizza. This is really the profound part of this entire conversation.
Is. You can tell it's 10 to 3 in the morning, can't you?
It's the fact that when you have pizza, you can share it. You can have it between yourselves. I do think, though, some Americans, and I do know Americans in my life at the moment that are like this, they literally eat like children. They'll have chicken nuggets and chips, and they won't try different cuisines. Especially, I mean, the city is pretty good for this, but especially outside of the city, lots of people are like, no, I want my Texas barbecue, I want my burgers, nothing else. Don't want any of that foreign stuff. No, only pizza.
Nothing foreign, just the Italian dish.
Just the Italian dish, exactly.
Actually, Azim, there's a point, isn't there? That if pizza was such a vital weapon of war, surely Italy wouldn't have been so terrible as a military power. Right? They failed to conquer Ethiopia.
Should we nationalise pizza?
Like, genuinely, like Italy. When has Italy ever won a war? I don't think it's ever won a war.
Tom, very quickly, the Romans did very well
in the US.
Sorry. I missed it. Hang on. Paul, just repeat yourself. I missed it.
I just wanted to say the Romans did very well, Tom. They were quite successful as a military force.
The Romans didn't have pizza.
Yeah, different time, different empire. Azim, sorry, we interrupted you.
I'm wondering, you know, this is actually quite, we're making light of this, but this is actually quite vital intelligence for a lot of foreign countries to actually realise when something is actually in the works, particularly if they are the ones that are on the receiving end. I'm just wondering, these publicly available statistics, I'm just wondering if the Pentagon would actually step in and try to put an end to some of these in terms of not the actual pizza outlets themselves, but in terms of the actual, just the information coming out, instead of having it in the public
Or maybe
domain, just the sales.
I've got a strategy here. Maybe the Pentagon should hire me for this. Order pizza at night. Every couple of weeks, just to throw us off. Throw us off. Just have a pizza party on a Saturday. Just do it because nothing will happen, and the data will just be completely useless.
This is what MI5 did in the Second World War. We had inflatable tanks that we would put at Dover to try and convince the Nazis that D-Day would happen nearer Calais rather than down the coast. I mean, we constructed fake villages, fake aircraft hangar, balsa wood planes. I mean, we did it all. I suppose it's not beyond the wit of man, Azim, that that's exactly what the Pentagon's doing tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, you're boosting the economy, the local economy, creating jobs, pizza
taxpayer-funded pizza, you Keynesian.
This is the way to go.
Wow, you can tell this is a highbrow show. We've just shouted the words taxpayer-funded pizza, you Keynesian. I'm sure the late John Maynard Keynes is, the Lord Keynes, is appreciative of that. Simon Nash, ultimately, we are talking a lot about whether war is desirable or otherwise. Earlier in the programme, we were talking about what might happen. Could the aggressors of Russia be turning on Britain? Could there be something going on in Iran? Might be there some other operation? Where would your money be if indeed we're not being chased down the garden path on this? What might be happening?
Well, I did watch, sorry to say, that the BBC's undeclared war about Russian cyber attacks on the UK. I actually think this will probably be a preventative measure by the Trump administration. Under Barack Obama, they did a very successful cyber attack on nuclear facilities in Iran. I think there'll be something similar, something very calculated by the Americans. I think they probably went to Russia to kind of warn them off, doing anything military themselves. I think there'll be something tactical and big in Iran. But yeah, maybe the Ukraine war and everything, if all these political leaders, met over a pizza, gave a piece of pizza a chance instead of, if the Pentagon spent money on pizza instead of on weapons, they, I had a joke there, and I forgot what the joke was. Apologies, I've lost my words. Sorry, I need a pizza myself.
So that talk of peace.
That's quite all right. At less than 10 minutes to 3 o'clock, perhaps, unless anyone's got a burning piece of pizza, no, something to say, then we will perhaps draw this particular conversation to a close. Yeah, before anyone gets any more urges to order some late night pizza. If we've made you all hungry, I apologise. Well, let's delve into some of the main stories on the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers now, starting with the front page of The Independent, which is reporting, of course, Dolly, Queen of Country, dies at 80. Dolly Parton there, Queen of Country, described by The Independent. The Sun goes with "We will always love you, Dolly." Play on, of course, one of her most famous songs written in just one day, alongside Jolene, actually. The Metro is going with "Switching to vapes better than puffing," which, of course, if you were watching The Late Show Live last week, you would have learnt as well. The Express is going with "Britain must prepare for Putin's threat." Yes, indeed, that threat to Britain that seems to be emanating more so now from the Russians. The Mirror goes with "We will always love you, Dolly," replicating another paper with a very, very similar headline. The Guardian goes with "Back review on electoral reform," MPs tell Burnham. Left field there from The Guardian, but that's kind of what they're for. The Times goes with "Boycott, fears over Burnham's Israel plans." Goodness me, West Bank settlement, sanctions split Labour is the subtitle there. An interesting story, but not one that we're going to touch on in the last minute of the conversation, which of course is not long enough to solve the Middle East crisis. The Telegraph goes with "Birmingham set to be the first 20-mile-an-hour city." But of course, as some of our viewers rightly pointed out, not the first one in the country, just the first one in England. After all, we've seen it in Wales. Well, we've only got a minute left. Frankly, it's not enough time to discuss any of those topics with my panel, with my excellent panel, so I'm just going to do some views in the last 60 seconds. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I think it's been one of the most fun shows that I've done while I've been over here in Washington, D.C., I have to say. It's been an absolute delight, so thank you all. Now, Eggnog the Unsteady. I see what you did there. I like my medieval history as well. Eggnog says, Tom, where's Bev? Well, I can exclusively reveal she will be back presenting this show in this chair on Thursday, so look forward to that. Lynn says it's not just the UK, it's all part of Agenda 2030, talking about the speed limits as well. More smart cities, they don't want people to have any kind of freedom. And Anne says, when my grandson sees you, Tom, he says his Nana, Nana, that's your friend. You, Tom, oh, we met. Anne, you said, I told him about, I showed the photos at Camilla Tominey's show from a couple of years ago in Sheffield. Well, Anne, I'm so glad that happened. Thank you so much. Thank you to my panel once more. I'll be back tomorrow night. Thank you for spending a night with The Late Show Live.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome back to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's warm and humid for many of us today, but low pressure is moving in and that will give heavy downpours, even some very lively thunderstorms. In fact, we're starting the day with heavy showers moving through parts of central and eastern England. This line of showery rain extending through northwest England into Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, and it's progressing north. Meanwhile, as temperatures rise through the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south, other thunderstorms will develop into the afternoon, interspersed by some sunshine, and it will feel warm in the sunshine, temperatures up to the mid or even high 20s, staying largely dry but fresher to the north and northeast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine for Shetland and Orkney, barely a drop of rain here. And we keep a fine end to the day for many parts of Scotland, generally northeastwards of Glasgow. But we do have this area of potentially thundery rain moving into southern and central Scotland as the day progresses. Showers easing off for a time across Northern Ireland, but this is the area where there is a thunderstorm warning. Parts of Wales into northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia, because of the risk of large hail, frequent lightning, torrential rain. We're talking about 50 millimetres in places in just a few hours. That could cause some serious impacts despite the fact that we've been so lacking in rainfall recently. More heavy downpours move into the south overnight and to start things off on Thursday. A warm and muggy start to the day here. And it's going to be a cloudy start for many parts of the UK on Thursday itself. We follow the track of this line of potentially thundery rain as it moves through central parts of the UK, albeit slowly, and some places again could see more than 50 millimetres through the day.